This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Letterboxd.
And this is on Letterboxd.
Yeah, because I'm not on Twitter, basically.
You're off of Twitter. Oh, it's good for you,
but I'm
man.
not on Twitter.
Well, I'm still on Twitter, and you can find me at I am Mike White, because I am Mike White.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find more of our work at ObsessiveViewer.com. You can also like us on Facebook and join the Facebook group at Facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer. And you can support us on Patreon at Patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer at the minimum rate of $1 per month for an exclusive RSS feed with content recorded specifically for Patreon supporters. I'm one of your hosts, Matt Hurt, and with me today on this very special annual episode that we do are my two co-hosts, Mike and Tiny. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Tiny.
Hey. How you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
Nice.
Great. I am the embodiment of that meme of the dog where it used to be everything was on fire, and he says, "This is fine." But now he's just sitting there, and the house is not on fire, and this is fine.
It's just like, this is fine.
Things are fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Me too. I'm feeling pretty good. Good. Excited for this episode. This is our yearly year in review episode. I've got to say, this is going to be an interesting conversation because I fucking hated 2020 so much. Like, that seems kind of, I don't know, maybe hacky or like it seems like the thing to say or whatever, but like I didn't have a good year. I don't think anyone did, but right. Like everything sucked. So
Jeff Bezos had a good year.
He had a good year. Yeah, that's true. I think what I've said to a lot of people when they've asked if they've asked is like, I don't know, like personally and creatively, kind of getting to be home a lot wasn't that terrible. I got a lot of stuff done, like hobby-wise and personal-wise. But on the flip side, I also like pushed my friends and family away. Just like I really was, I used staying home all the time as an excuse to like not talk to people, or I would like take too long to answer texts. I was just not a very communicative friend. Mostly because I was like, I got so tired of talking about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, you definitely need like a reprieve from it and everything, especially months and months into the weirdness of 2020. So yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I just naturally push everyone away anyway, so it was, I was at home. I was very comfortable
true.
in 2020.
That's true.
Yeah. But no, it's funny because like when I got COVID, I texted my brother and told him, and then he was like, "Yeah, like how you don't leave? Like what? Like how did you get it?" I'm like, I fucking don't know.
Yeah,
the cat.
But yeah, the cat. Oh god,
the cat.
Yeah, worth it.
Yeah, it's funny. Of the three of us, I'm the only one that hasn't had it.
Yeah. Do we want to say that out loud, Mike? Are we violating your HIPAA privileges?
No.
Okay.
No, I had it. That's fine.
Okay.
That's a positive. It's no secret.
And Fekkes had it as well. Ben and Kyrsten did not get it either. So, out of the entire Obsessive Viewer team, we're 50%. Yeah.
Crazy.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll give it time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I keep saying, but I have no idea how I haven't got it yet.
Well, you also have to consider, by the way, guys, we're recording this January 21st, 2021. A little late to the game for the year in review episode, but that's kind of our MO in the last few years. But you got to keep in mind that the pandemic ended January 1st, and everything went back to normal because 2020 was over with. And then now that Biden's president, everything is just magically fine.
Yeah. Sorry, I like beat you to. I didn't realize that's the joke you were going to, and was trying to make the same one. Yeah, now it feels like a new year.
Yeah,
today's New Year's.
Right.
Yeah. So just an introduction for our listeners and everything, if anyone is just happening to plug into just this episode. We are a movie and TV podcast, as I said at the top of the episode, and this is the episode that we do once per year where we just kind of talk about the year in movies and how we consumed movies and the stats involved and everything. And in years past, we would do that by just like obsessively, no pun intended, compiling our notes and like physically and manually compiling our lists of movies that we watched and everything. But we, for the last several years, have been using Letterboxd, which is an amazing like social network thing for movie lovers. And so we use Letterboxd as a diary for our movie watching, and you can have lists and stuff. It's really great. And with the pro membership or patron membership, which I have, you can get stats and everything, and that's where we'll likely, at least I'll be using for my stats in this episode. So just a plug, check out Letterboxd. It's amazing. And follow all of us at our respective handles that were set at the top of the episode. So yeah, how was your guys' 2020 in terms of movies overall? And yeah, how was everyone's years?
Well, do you mind if I start?
Oh, go right ahead.
It was by far my most successful movie year.
Wow.
And I will say, there is a little bit of guilt admitting that, because this was a very difficult year to all varying degrees to just about everybody. It was a difficult year. And I really don't want to make light of the challenges that people faced. I know people were out of work. I know people got sick. Personally, I know people who got sick. And also the real tragedy is how many lives were lost through all of this. So please know that I don't mean to take any of that lightly whatsoever. But we were inside all the time. I tested positive for COVID and missed a week of work. And I had surgery on my nose.
Oh, yeah.
Which pretty much laid me up in bed for another week. I watched a ton of movies. I blew it out of the water. My highest movie year ever.
Now, I have a question for you on that, and we'll get to
Sure.
stats, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty here in a bit, but okay, so in terms of blowing out your movie watching for the year and just exceeding your personal records and everything, do you see that as... How much of that is due to having just an abundance of downtime because of like all of the things that happened in 2020? And was there any compared to if there was any part of that surge in viewing that was for comfort reasons? Like, did you like recede to movie watching as a kind of escape from like all of the shitstorm of 2020?
Interesting. That's a good question, and I think that's fair to presume. But not really. Okay. I don't know. I'm again, man. I don't want to like pretend like I'm above it or didn't suffer through it. But I'm pretty good at like compartmentalizing. I don't know. Maybe the depression from COVID will hit me later. But it wasn't like a safety net. More than anything, it was. Obsessive. And it was like, I would say around June-ish when I had my surgery, and there was like 2 days where I watched 7 movies. Wow. I was like, man, this year I'm watching so many movies. What if I start? And so like by mid-June, I was like crunching numbers to see how many I needed to watch to hit my biggest year.
I remember.
So rather than, funny enough, one of the things we love to do on this podcast, if you're new to the show, is talk about our mental health and our various maladies. I didn't really have the depression, but what I do have is some obsessive tendencies. And when I realized that there was a number I could hit, achieving that number became like thing number one in my life.
Interesting.
And so, just like I said, obsessively crunching that. Like if I go low in October, that I'm gonna watch 31. So I would take that out and be like, okay, that leaves 5 months left. If I want to hit this number, how many do I need per month? And then I would like keep track on the daily, like percentage wise, where I was at each one. It was something. It was obsessive for sure.
That's amazing, because what I have found for me is that I've adopted that type of approach to things myself, but it's mostly just podcast stuff. Like if I like, I have like on my whiteboard, I have I have separated by different areas and stuff. I have just a list of about 40 or 45 episodes just of Tower Junkies that I want to try to get done in 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
So yeah. I don't know why I'm focusing so much on Tower Junkies, but yeah.
Well, I think the thing. Well, why not? The thing for me this year, like I said, during my surgery, when I started watching like some of my favorite movies, right, which I might have talked about on a previous episode, just like instead of watching new stuff and old horror movies I'd never seen before, I was like, I haven't seen That Thing You Do in a couple of years, so I'm going to watch that, or Face Off, or Rockstar, or whatever. And going through those as like, well, I guess like comfort movies, really helped with the numbers.
Nice. Cool. So overall, your year it sounds like it was pretty...
I mean, aside from COVID.
Yeah. Against all odds, it was not horrible, I guess.
Right. For the purposes of this podcast, it was extremely successful.
Okay. Nice. Tiny, how was your 2020?
In terms of the podcast and movie watching, was not good at all. Kind of the polar opposite of Mike. The wife and I really dove into television over the last year. Just to name off some huge shows we watched all of Big Bang Theory. We watched all of Modern Family. We watched all of Friends. And we've watched most of Seinfeld.
Wow.
So, I mean, that dictated a lot of the year. Not to mention all the new shows that came out that we binged and watched. So we really just dove into TV this year. And I think part of it was the fact that so many releases were being pushed to next year or 2 years from now, or some stuff was just dumped on VOD and stuff like that. I just wasn't very enthused about film this year. And it was partially a mental thing where I almost shut off that part of my brain, trying to seek out new movies. 'Cause that's something I would do in the past, let's just cruise around VOD and see what's new. And I did that up until probably March, April, May even, and was disappointed by the results. And so I just kind of gave up halfway through the year and didn't even really care.
Interesting.
Funny enough, you talk about that thing you do in your brain with movies. That's kind of how I am with TV. I just like turn that switch off mentally.
Okay.
Like I talk about, as big a fan of Star Wars as I am, like as huge a part of my identity as Star Wars is, like I haven't even finished The Mandalorian. I'm not even sure I finished the first season. Wow. And the fact that I'm not sure, I think, is also telling.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We don't have to get into it or anything, but did you catch wind of like anything that happened in season 2?
I did, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Spoiled for you. That sucks.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it, but I have negative feelings about Star Wars in general. So it's a miracle that I even tolerate The Mandalorian the way that I do. Because it's genuinely good. But that's interesting, Tiny, about focusing on TV. Should I do mine?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So in terms of my year, like just in general, personal and health-wise and everything-wise, just like I just had a shitty year. It sucked. But the in terms of like movie watching, I didn't take to watching movies as comfort as much as I would think that I would have. Like at the start of the pandemic, I just did a run of episodes of the podcast where, like, since I was just sheltering in place and just quarantining at home, I just did like extended potpourri episodes that I just talked about the stuff that I was watching and stuff, and that was fun. But then it kept going, and it didn't stop. So that kind of, I eventually just like transitioned to the podcasting being more like normal, even though it's not the normal thing. But something that kind of interestingly came up was that a kind of interesting comfort that I found in 2020 was just doing the podcast and doing like branching off the, like having all the recurring co-hosts and everything, but having one-on-one episodes with each one, and usually reviewing like 2 movies at a time. That's something that just I feel like 2020 and all of its crappiness and everything kind of spurred the podcast to change slightly in just the overall format. Just in it kind of was just a gradual thing, and I'm happy with what we're doing and how we've done it throughout 2020. So we'll see what 2021 brings, but yeah, crappy year. And in terms of movie watching, I was fine. My numbers were pretty good. My numbers were actually very good compared to previous years, with the exception of a couple years ago when I was insane. But like, there's just a big difference between not being able to see dozens of movies in the theater versus seeing like a massive amount of movies at home. Like, it's just, there is a distinct difference. So it kind of,
absolutely,
yeah, it puts just this, it puts this over, like this shadow over the year in terms of my movie stats. Like, it's just like, okay, I know that I watched like X number of movies in the theater, and the last movie I saw in the theater was March 11th. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say right now, I know that we haven't gotten to stats yet, but I saw 13 movies in theaters in 2020, and I average 70.
Yeah, me too. I
so even though my biggest number year ever, it excludes all but 13 theater viewings. It's kind of hard to believe. And I agree, as much as I love watching my old favorites and crappy horror movies on Shudder, I miss the theater so much.
Me too.
And, getting excited for a movie.
Me too.
Do you count drive-in as theater viewings? You do, right?
I only saw one,
okay.
And I generally do, yeah.
Okay, good. I saw maybe, I honestly, I don't even think I compiled that stat, because it's so depressing. But I think I saw 11 movies in the theater plus 2 at the drive-in.
Yeah, I saw Scream.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw Vertigo and Rear Window, so that was cool. But yeah, so 2020 sucked. Let's bid it adieu and do our episode and kind of go forward, I guess.
Get to the numbers?
Well, before we do that, Mike, I do...
We got stuff.
Oh, yes. Well, I wanted to just give you a chance to just talk about your Patreon and and do you want to talk about like your and Kevin's thing too?
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about this stuff. Yeah, I have a lot of hobbies on the side. I have mentioned before, but I'll mention again, my band, As Good As It Gets. We are currently on a COVID-induced hiatus. It's not like a break or a breakup or anything. We can't get together to finish the record that we started in March. So I have kind of taken it upon myself to record songs for our Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/asgoodasitgets, there's a $1 option, which is just like a newsletter. You're basically just saying, hey, keep doing what you're doing. But for the $3, you get a monthly acoustic song that I record new here at my home studio. And generally, it's like a redo of one of my old songs. So like an old one from like 2004 that my band, who Dustin is my current partner, was also in that band. that we wrote when we were kids, and I redo it, and it's acoustic-y, and it's a little more folky, and we put that stuff out. And sometimes I'll take one that was done acoustically, and then I'll turn it into an electric song, and throw some other goodies in there. Next month, I'm going to do 2 songs. I'm going to do a cover song and another exclusive song. So that is kind of my main thing going right now while I work on other music. I also have my YouTube channel, which we just reached 100 subs. So now we have a custom URL. So you can just go to youtube.com/asgoodasitgets to follow us on YouTube. And then the other thing I've got going on is my brother and I started a video podcast where we watch our old home movies and kind of do commentary on those. And it's kind of like, you probably wouldn't care too much about watching our old home videos, but the themes of nostalgia, and we kind of set the home movies in context to kind of talk about the 80s and 90s as we lived them. So it's just kind of a fun nostalgia thing. It's a way for my brother and I to get together. So that's called That's My Brudda on YouTube. You can just look that one up. And then As Good As It Gets is the band.
That's awesome. I love the title of that.
That's great. Yeah,
Thank you.
Great. I love it.
It's from Catcher in the Rye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Holden goes to the museum, and there's the 2 boys there, and he's like, "What about your friend? Doesn't he talk?" And he goes, "He ain't my friend. That's my brother."
Huh. Nice. I haven't read Catcher in the Rye since I was a sophomore.
I wasn't a big fan, actually, of the book.
That's fair.
I read it, yeah.
Yeah. I was more outfield. Yeah. So,
really?
Yeah. Get it, guys? So yeah, cool. Well, check out Mike's stuff. Super excited to see what you have cooking in the new year. Yeah.
Oh yeah, stay around for the end of this episode, and you can get a snippet of the January song. It's called "Apathy is the Key to Success," if you ask me, which I wrote when I was 14 years old, and I re-recorded it just the other day when I was 34 years old.
Nice. That's awesome. So another question about 2020 and everything. Do you find yourself writing more in terms of like anything? Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Okay. Yeah, the next record that we do is going to be very, very quarantine inspired. Some darker lyrics. Yeah. Pretty excited about it, but yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Sweet. And Tiny, when are you starting a music band?
Oh God, I am not a musician at all, so you would hate it.
Same here. All right, great. So let's go into our statistics. Our viewing and letterbox stats for the year. Mike, do you want to get us kicked off with yours, or do you want us to save you for last since you had a big year for you?
No, I can go. It's fine. Okay. Yeah, you should go last. You're the main. You are at Obsessive Viewer.
Well, I mean, I wasn't fishing for that, but thank you.
All right, yeah. I'll do my stats. So, like I said, this was my biggest year ever. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about it. So I watched an unbelievable 283 movies. My current high was 240, and that was in the year, I believe, 2011. Oh. And so my new high is now 43 extra movies I was able to watch last year. That's 490 hours of movies. That's 23.6 movies per month and 5.4 per day. So that's a lot of movies per week. Obviously, not obviously. I don't know why that would be obvious to you, but my most common day to watch a movie was Tuesday, and that's generally because I do a double feature every Tuesday at home. The first movie I watched in 2020 was Uncut Gems, which I didn't see until January 2nd, funny enough. And then the last movie I watched was Scare Me, which is a Shudder original, which is pretty interesting, but not great enough that I'll give it a review here.
Okay.
I don't rewatch a whole lot of movies, so my most watched movies are not impressive. There's like 7 or so that I watched twice, namely Freddy vs. Jason. I watch, and then a couple from my top 10 I watch. My most common genre is horror, followed by thriller. Far and away the biggest genre. If I'm not at the theater or currently watching a favorite, I try to seek out horror movies. So,
nice.
And then followed by drama and comedy. My wife and I like to watch comedies together. So 26 of my 283 movies were 2020 releases. So like I said, a lot of favorites. Mm-hmm. And then the majority of them, actually, 150, which is 53% of them, were rewatches from the year. My most common actor, or I guess the star I watched the most, is Samuel L. Jackson. And that's because I did not only a Quentin Tarantino mini rewatch, but I also did like a back half of the Avengers mini rewatch, which he's obviously in a lot of. Yeah. So I watched 7 Quentin Tarantino movies. So he is my most common director. I also watched the Batman trilogy and Inception, and I don't remember what else I watched, but Christopher Nolan is my second most common director with 5. I would rather not say who the producer is at number 1, and you can probably guess from context.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
And I think that's it. I'll kind of say, so those are my stats. Some of my favorite experiences of the year before I get into top 10s.
Well, do you mind? I want to kind of circle back and go back to your stats real quick, because you said your previous high year was 2011 with 240. How many?
Either 240 or 241. I think it's 240.
And I just want to ask, for context, because in 2011 you weren't married, you didn't have kids. What was your life like in that time to get into that much?
Yeah, I was extremely single for most of that year. I started dating my wife in October 2011. But before that, I was single and tired of being single. Yeah. So I sat around and just watched a lot of movies. I remember weekends where my friend and roommate would go out and do stuff, and I'd be like, all right, I guess I'll just watch 3 movies today.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, and that's interesting that, and we've already talked about the year and everything, but it's just interesting that you're now married, you have kids, and obviously your time, in theory, should be, much more precious, but I assume because of the pandemic and everything about 2020, it allowed you to get
we, our boys go to bed pretty early. They go to bed at 6:30 at night, and I don't go to bed till 9:30 or 10. So depending on the night, that's kind of my thing to do at night. And in the summer, the summer end from March, because school was canceled. During nap time, quiet time for the boys, I would also watch a movie.
Nice. Nice. I just wanted to put that context out there. Any other stats and viewing experiences and everything?
No other stats that I think are really worth mentioning. I usually here is where we hit on theater viewings and that kind of stuff, but there just wasn't any. So I didn't even do a top 10 horror. I watched just a ton of old movies, a ton of my favorites. But probably the coolest thing was getting that Friday the 13th box set.
Oh, yeah.
Which Matt and I did an episode on my birthday, so I won't go into too much detail. But sitting down and watching those again was really something to be excited over. Particularly because I think I moved part 2 up to my number 1. I was really surprised by how much I took to that. And we didn't really do a Shocktober episode.
No.
I don't have my stats on hand for that, but I watched a ton in October as well, because that is when I tested positive for COVID. So something like 45, I think. I don't know. A lot.
Nice. Very nice.
So those are my numbers.
Sweet. Awesome. Tiny, do you want to share your viewing stats for 2020?
I will, such as they are. 110 total viewings, which I had 122 last year. My most ever was 2014. I had 366.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. Thinking back to that is silly.
That's insane.
I think this is my lowest viewings ever. If you look at my letterbox, and looking back at my letterbox, which Matt so graciously added a bunch of our previous years in there, because he's nuts.
Yeah.
If you look at a few of them, like I think 2009, I have like 106 viewings, and 2010's like 109 or something like that. I'm almost positive those are the 2 years where I have incomplete data.
Oh yeah.
So I'm almost certain this is my least amount of viewings since 2008, probably, where I didn't before I started tracking my stats. So yeah, not good in that regard. It's about 9 movies a month average, 2 movies a week. One of the more shocking statistics, I had 0 theater viewings, not one. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I was not excited by anything in January, February, or March. And stuff was getting pushed, and so I didn't make it out to the theater, and then the theaters closed. So that was that. So 0 theater viewings.
Damn.
Yeah. Most watched genre was drama with 43, so almost half, and least watched genre was history with 10. Of the films that came out in 2020, so 2020 releases, I only had 22 viewings.
Okay.
Which I was hoping to be a lot more than that. But
that's honestly more than I expected.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised, but I feel like I feel like my top 10 should be honorable mentions, and I should have a whole other slate of top 10 movies.
Yeah.
That's how it feels to me. And then, so we watched all of the Harry Potter movies, the wife and I. So my most watched actor was Alan Rickman. Most watched director was David Yates. For that reason, but we also watched. There were two other movies with Alan Rickman. Ironically, Love Actually, and Paige had never seen Die Hard.
Oh wow! Okay,
So we watched Die Hard on a whim.
Nice.
So I watched Alan Rickman, I think 10 times this year because of the
awesome.
8 Harry Potter movies and then those 2. So
nice.
it's funny.
Nice.
Probably one of the saddest statistics I've ever said on the podcast or ever compiled for myself. Of my top 10 movies, which we're not getting to, I'm not going to list them, but I'm saying my top 10 movies, all but one of them I watched completely alone.
Oh, wow. Oh, interesting.
Wasn't because no theater, right? Nothing in the theater.
Yeah.
And then a lot of them were just movies that I know my wife would not be interested in, and social distancing from all friends and family, so I didn't watch anything with friends and family. Just one movie I watched with my wife. That was it of my top 10. So. Those are the statistics I compiled. I didn't go crazy. I know my most common day for watching a movie was Saturday, which isn't a surprise.
Yeah.
There's some other stuff I could have pulled, but it was just such a bummer year for movie watching that I didn't go nuts with them.
I don't blame you. Yeah, that is a bummer.
Yeah.
We'll probably touch on this later, but do you see yourself bouncing back from that in 2021?
I don't know. We'll see. I think I'll have more viewings maybe. And I think I'll be more enthusiastic about my top 10 next year. I think more stuff's going to come out this year. Hopefully
Dear God, I hope so.
It all just depends on the pandemic and all that stuff. We'll see. We'll see. But I don't know. I don't feel bad. Like I don't feel like I'm not an obsessive viewer because seriously, we just watch so much television. And I think television is so great right now. So it was a good year for television. I'll say that. So I did enjoy that side of it. But the movies just weren't there for me this year.
Yeah, I can understand that for sure.
Yeah.
Shall I go into my stats?
Go for it.
Okay. So on it, I had a good year. So my total viewings, I had a total number of viewings of 283, which I think, Mike, you and I tied.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was not a competition.
We had this joke all year,
Yeah.
which I don't know how much of a joke it was. I guess it was a joke. Like I said, in summer, when I kind of realized that I was going to have a pretty big year, I started like paying attention to the number, and admittedly paying attention to your number.
Yeah.
And I want to say in like July, I was like 9 or 10 movies up on you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I like said something, and it set you off.
It's
And you want a tear in late summer,
mm-hmm.
and then I was like, "Shoot, man, he's doing this. He's gonna beat me. He's gonna watch more." I knew that I would catch up in October, and then I think I passed you up again in October, or at least brought us pretty close. And then November in those screeners, man.
Well, and that's the thing. So, yes, I got access to screeners again, obviously, with my membership to the IFJA. But I've got to say, honestly, my numbers would have been. I would have had a considerable larger number of viewings had I not caught COVID at the end of the year, because COVID knocked me out from December like 11th to after Christmas. And in that time frame, since I was symptomatic, like I had just a fucking pile of symptoms all over me. That's the time, that's the time frame where I get screeners, and that's where I get that's crunch time for the IFJA to watch as many screeners as we can, so that we can have our awards and everything, and hash out our top movie of the year and our awards ceremony and everything. And I was just so it was a combination of, on one hand, just being knocked down from COVID. I could not focus my attention on anything longer than a Family Guy cutaway. So I basically I had a drought of not being able to watch the screeners that I was that I was looking forward to. So that's why my numbers just sagged at the end of the year. And also,
I will say, had I known, because I slacked a little, but I didn't. I mean, compared to my October and summer pace, I slacked, but I still pretty consistently watched movies. Especially at the end of the semester, we went virtual from Thanksgiving to Christmas, and I got an hour lunch, which I usually just have a 30-minute lunch. So I would squeeze in a movie on my lunch hour, so I could watch a movie every other day, obviously.
Yeah.
So I would do that and then watch one at home as well. And I had conceded that you were going to win the year. By the way, in July, one of us started the hashtag not a contest.
Right. Yeah.
Totally just became a contest.
What was that?
Totally just became a contest.
Oh yeah.
And so I had conceded in December. I was like, he's so far ahead of me, I'm just going to kind of watch comfortably. And it wasn't until the day before New Year's Eve I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, he's one ahead of me, and I'm planning on watching 2 tomorrow anyway. I kind of hope he just watches 1.
Yeah, and to be honest, we had that conversation. I think we talked about it in some capacity. You told me oh yeah, I'm gonna watch these 2 movies to round out the year, and then in my head I was doing the math too, and I was like, I could just be a dick and watch 2. I planned on watching 1 extra movie.
I feel I will say, not a contest. Yeah. I will say, by the time we had the conversation, your second movie wouldn't have started until 11:45 Eastern time.
Okay.
I remember starting my second one being I think I'm safe.
Nice. But I just ended up watching, like, even getting the energy to watch my last movie of the year was like a little bit of a chore, because I was just like, because it's not even, it's not just that I had COVID, and like by that point I think I was done with the symptom. Yeah, I was like, that was my that week, like I was basically out of the woods in terms of being symptomatic. But those 2.5 weeks where I had COVID and I was like laid up and sick and everything with it, I was also like, it was being sick, and like I said, I had just all the symptoms at once, and it just fucking sucked. But on top of that, it was like the mental strain that it put on me, because I was, on one hand, I was just depressed that I got it. On the other hand, I was fucking furious that I got it. And
yeah,
it was just not a good mental state for me. So I was like, I can't concentrate on these movies about like these, like even like the kind of prestige movies. It's like, okay, these are like kind of heavy duty dramas and stuff. I'm like, I can't. So I ended up, the last week that I had COVID, I just ended up listening to, I ended up watching Family Guy a lot and listening to Stephen King short stories on Audible. So, that's where I got my comfort in, and the closing days of my bout with COVID. But anyway, so yeah, 283 movies, or viewings, and a stat that I'm kind of proud of, and it's going to sound like a lot, but it's also, like, keep in mind, these are just blurbs. But on Letterboxd, I took the time to, out of those 283 viewings, I wrote 207 reviews on Letterboxd. Like, and these are just capsule reviews, like, oh, this movie was good because this, and X and Y was in, like, led to Z, and I really liked that. Like, it's just, like, brief, like, stream of conscious thing, so it's not, like, full-on reviews. But I was really proud of, like that. So yeah, the 283 movies amounted to 504.6 hours. And I was really proud of the weekly kind of output, in terms of, I only had maybe a few weeks out of the year. I had I only had 2 weeks out of the entire year where I didn't watch a movie. So that was cool. My biggest day was Monday. I watched 53 movies on Monday, on Mondays. First and last films. First was Her, which I talked about last year on the Year in Review episode. And to round out the year, to have a kind of some connectivity with it, to kind of bookend the year, I watched Jexy, which was horrible. The only reason I watched it was because it's a comedy version of Her, essentially. And it was not worth it to have that as a stat for my movie watching in 2020. It was terrible. Repeat viewings. I watched Knives Out a total of 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah. One of those.
I mean, that's a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I watched it twice the year it came out.
Yeah.
But like, do you really get something out of it the 4th time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get, let's see. So, well, the 4th time I watched it was to record a commentary track for Patreon. So I maybe didn't get a lot out of it, but the patrons sure did. Am I right? Patreon.com/Obsessive Viewer. But anyway, yeah, it's one of those things where I can't account for why I watched it 4 times, but I know at least one of them was like, okay, I'm going to throw this on because I really like this movie. And, yeah, so, kind of a comfort viewing, I guess. And then, other repeat viewings, tied for second was Back to the Future, and they came together both with 3 viewings, each. So pretty happy with
3
that.
times. Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
And I'm also proud of this, because despite everything that went wrong with the year in terms of movies and access to movies, because another thing that I didn't mention was that in terms of like screeners for the IFJA, there was like a little bit, it wasn't as heavy a like deluge of screeners, and most of them were like digital screeners that had like a finite amount of time where I had access to it. So like, I mean, I didn't have the energy to prioritize them and stuff. So some of the screeners expired and everything. It's not like I had like a big ass thing of physical screeners like I did last year. But throughout 2020, movies that were released in 2020 that I watched accounted for a total of 94 of my 283 viewings. So
Damn.
I watched 94 2020 releases in 2020.
Wow.
Yeah. Which I was very proud of. Yeah. And I think
I didn't even know that many this year.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So, like, yes, it sucks. Movie theaters were shut down and reopened, and then shut down, and everything, and then like movies, like big tentpole movies, got pushed aside, or a director maybe forced it into theaters because he. I'm not going to go on that tangent, but while making the sound mix really obscene and terrible to really hear anything. But anyway,
you're straining a bit.
I know. So, but yeah, so people are saying like, obviously, yes, there's not a lot of movies in the kind of crop of movies in 2020. But what I found myself thinking toward the end of the year is that like there were good movies. There were incredible movies in 2020. It's just that it was harder to find them. And one of the things, like, and I know that I'm speaking from a place of privilege in that I get the screeners and everything, so like it's a lot easier for me to find them. But if I didn't have those, and this is also an issue that maybe we don't need to talk about it. Maybe we can talk about it in a future episode or something, because it's a big one. But like the shifting or the kind of the way that the movie industry transitioned to VOD and premium VOD and everything, like if I didn't have access to screeners, there is not a single movie that came out in 2020 that would necessitate me, that would compel me to pay $20 for a rental digital. Yeah. Like none whatsoever.
Agreed. Yeah.
This feels like another episode of a podcast, but we kind of talked about this with some of my friends. Like, what would you pay $20 for tomorrow to watch?
Yeah.
And honestly, so to be fair, I'm a cheapskate. My wife and I have an allowance, and so I have to like save my money for stuff that I want that we don't want together. I would be the only person watching the movie by myself to rent it for 3 days. And my friend was like, if Halloween came out tomorrow, you wouldn't spend $20. And I said, I probably would, but not certainly yes. And I would have buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a new movie. I don't think there's a new movie that could come out that would make me want to spend $20 to watch it at home. Like, say theoretically that this was 2019 and Avengers Endgame came out, and say Avengers Endgame came out last year in 2020 instead of 2019, and it was on premium VOD. Like, that's the one example that I could think of. Like, okay, this could be worth $20 to watch at home. But again, like Mike said, I would have buyer's remorse from that, because I mean, that is a theatrical experience. So yeah.
Yeah, I would have done it for Dune, because that was my whole cinematic year was Dune, and then I think that's part of where all my enthusiasm left was. It was part of that, because when they pushed it to, pushed it out of theaters and then they weren't going to release it at all, I was like, all right, well, I'm done for the year. And if they had done the whole thing that they did with like Mulan or whatever, I would have paid $20 for that without question. Wow. And I probably wouldn't have had buyer's remorse, because I want to see that movie so bad.
Well, you'll get your chance in, I think, October when it comes out on HBO Max and theaters.
Right.
Which that's a whole other thing. But anyway, so I watched 94 movies released in 2020, and I still, even with that amount of new release movies that I saw, like there are some that I missed, which we'll get to, but there is also just the lack of enthusiasm just from draining from my mental state and my mental health from 2020. And also just, I think part of it is also just a lack of the big summer blockbuster tentpole releases. Just made this the hardest top 10 list that I've had to make. Hard stop in terms of the year and movie lists.
Yeah.
So anyway, first and last film, all that. I did keep track of one thing that I referenced throughout the year. On Letterboxd, if you go to my profile and go to my lists, I have what I have affectionately called the Letterboxd Litterbox 2020. It is a compilation of movies that I watched in 2020 in which a cat is on screen at some point in the film. If you go to the actual list on Letterboxd, you will see a comment from our very own Mike White that is just simply yikes. Which fills me with so much joy.
Brutal.
But the final stat for Letterboxd 2020, and I will say this is the only time I'm going to do this, because I'm not going to do that yearly because it's so dumb. But I watched 33 movies that featured a cat in some capacity on screen.
Huh.
So yeah. So if you want to get some cool cat action going, there's a crop of 33 movies that you can watch to see
and
them.
now we all know that and have that in our brains permanently.
Absolutely. So top genres, the top one was drama, which I feel like that. I don't know how. I don't know. I kind of feel like drama is kind of a catch-all kind of thing, because I'm sure if I go through, it's probably a little bit more nuanced. But then from there, it's comedy, thriller, horror, sci-fi. Let's see, and then of the I watched 63.3% of them of my movies watched were first viewings. So that's 179 out of 283, and 36.7% were rewatches. And my most watched actors. I went through such a kick of watching Kurosawa movies and samurai movies. So my top actor was Toshiro Mifune, with 12 movies that I watched of his, and the second was Takashi Shimura, 9 movies, and coming up third, tied for third, but I'll just say this, was Chris Evans, notable Japanese actor Chris Evans.
I was gonna say, which samurai movies was he?
Yeah. No, I watched 7 movies with him, with him in them, not with him. I do want to mention, just real quick, just a brief aside, one of those movies was a rewatch of Snowpiercer, which I was a fan of. I rewatched it, and I got a whole new appreciation of that movie.
I need to rewatch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Yeah, because I was
Amanda
really
watched that whole movie, which is kind of crazy. That seems so far afield of her interests.
Yeah,
nice. And then top directors, I had at the end of the year, I had these 2 directors were neck and neck. So I had Akira Kurosawa and Alfred Hitchcock. Those 2 were like one away from each other throughout the last half of the last month of the year. And then I was all like, oh, I'm going to just binge watch a bunch of their movies and see which one comes out on top or whatever. And then I got COVID and then didn't watch. I watched one. But the top director was Akira Kurosawa I watched 9 of his movies in 2020. And the runner-up at 8 movies was Alfred Hitchcock. So those are my director stats. I watched Christopher Nolan movies. I watched 5 Christopher Nolan movies. Also, he's the third. A few of them were really good. So I don't.
How did Chris Nolan with the total heel turn, man?
I think I don't want to besmirch anything, because this is a celebratory episode. And at least 2 of the lists, one of the lists on this, anyway. I think those are pretty much all my stats for 2020 that I have. Even though the numbers were pretty good, 283 is nothing to sneeze at. But it felt just, I don't know. It just feels like I don't have the energy to really celebrate that and everything. Because
something you mentioned kind of at the top of your stats was the struggle and excitement you had coming up with your top films.
Yeah.
And we talked about this kind of all year, certainly toward the back half of the year. I think the three of us, when we were talking about this episode in maybe November, we were all like, are we even sure that we're going to have I think my exact words were, I haven't seen 10 good movies this year.
Yep.
Yeah.
As recently as like October, November, I was like, I'm not sure I want to do it, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say also that of the recurring co-hosts lists, I did not get a top 10 list from Kyrsten or Fekkes. I got like a top 5 from Kyrsten, and I got like highlights from Fekkes. So
yeah.
So
yeah, for sure, it was tough, and I will say I am pleased with this top 10. These are the best movies of the year. But man, I gotta say, I don't know that 3 of these, maybe 4 of these would make it on other years. When I think of like the best years, like 2014 sticks out in my mind. That's when like Boyhood and Nightcrawler and Gone Girl, Prisoners, those movies just blew my mind. These wouldn't even like come close. These wouldn't even be in the top 15 of 2014.
Yeah.
I feel the exact. I think maybe one of mine would be on a normal top 10.
Damn.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like, and this is something that I communicated in the pod chat at some point, but I feel like the mostly complete lack of summer blockbusters, that among other things just sapped my excitement for movie going and movie watching this year, because I kind of feel like I needed like that kind of salve to put on it, or whatever. Is that the right word? No. I don't know.
Salve.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Some people say salve. I've kind of said salve.
Salve.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just need like something to counterbalance the more heavy viewing and stuff, and I just didn't have that. Yeah. And the fascinating thing, and this can go into our movies we missed if we have any, but the kind of fascinating thing about that is that when I had a summer blockbuster readily available to me, I did not have the energy or inclination to watch Wonder Woman 1984.
We planned to review it on this podcast, guys, and Matt and I just straight up said, let's not.
Yep.
We just did.
Yeah. It was, and it's not for anything, like it's solely because I just didn't have the kind of excitement for it, or the enthusiasm for it. I liked the first Wonder Woman a lot. But it's just like after the beating of this year, it was just like, okay, I'll see it when I see it, but I can't get excited for it. So yeah, any movies you guys missed?
Like I said, I didn't even bother because the would have been such a big list, and I would have been not depressed, but just so filled with so much regret for the stuff that I didn't watch, because I definitely had the opportunities to. I just could not get excited about watching movies this year, and I would have been embarrassed by my list of what I missed. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I also want to throw in, I regret that I missed Freaky and Spontaneous. Yeah. Those two were I was excited about seeing, but I didn't.
Those are the big ones. And Freaky, I was obviously never willing to go to a theater to see it. And it's coming to VOD. I'll probably wait. Like, I'm not gonna rent a movie for more than $5.99. Right. I'm sorry if that makes me cheap, but I'm a lower middle class high school teacher, and that's like $5.99 is the best I can do.
I don't think that makes you cheap at all. Like, I think that makes you more sensible. And also, I kind of, in the back of my mind, I'm like, if everyone's paying $20 for like VOD, then what does that signal to like the industry of like movie theaters? That, you know, what's that going to do to the movie theater industry when, you know, things get back to somewhat normal?
Right.
So yeah.
So I missed, funny enough, on my like 2020 movies to see, I didn't even put Wonder Woman 84 on there because I just don't care to. But Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, I didn't get to see that. Nomadland, I didn't get to see. The Trial of Chicago 7, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which that's not out yet, but it's
on Netflix.
It is. Yeah.
It is on Netflix?
Yeah. It was released on Netflix middle of December.
Oh, okay. And then Mank, and then Tenet, if I haven't mentioned that, are the kind of big, like, prestige. They're like the awards movies that people are talking about that I didn't get to see, but it's not like I'll see them if they get nominated because I'll feel that particular pressure to do so. But I don't know that any of those specifically talk to me, except for maybe Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. Yeah. But horror movies, there were a couple of big ones that I missed. Kind of like you said, Freaky is probably the big one. I don't remember if Saint Maud is coming or has come and just like it's $20 or whatever on VOD. I wanted to see The Dark and the Wicked, Hunter x Hunter, Spontaneous, The Wolf of Snow Hollow. So lots of horror, but I didn't want to pay for any of them.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like also that we're a little bit spoiled with A-list, or at least I was. So like even that, it's like, okay, I'm not going to spend the amount of money that I spent for a monthly subscription where I got I got to see 3 movies a week in the theater. I'm not going to spend that much money for one movie that I can watch for 3 days at home. Like I just could not rationalize that with myself. Yeah. I was going to say something about that. I did have a jokey tweet that I did of a top 10 list, but I can't find it. But that's fine. Anyway, okay, back to the notes. So yeah, that's what I was going to say. Mank. I also, that fell under the I don't have the energy to watch this movie.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, even though like that movie seems right up my alley. David Fincher making a movie about making movies, like prestige drama in black and white on Netflix. Like, I mean, come on, that is right up my alley. But I just could not bring myself to muster the energy to watch it. So, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Any other thoughts on movies we missed, or shall we move on to the next segment, which is something that I'm scrolling up to see what it is? It's our top 10 list.
Do the top 10. Let's get to it.
Did any of us have honorable mentions?
I
didn't.
I mean, anything after top 10 is an honorable mention, but
right. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you guys actually made a list. I usually do, but just this year, no.
Right.
I'll kind of go. I'll do my honorable mentions really quick. Just like the next 5. Come to Daddy, which is Elijah Wood. I thought was really interesting, and it was kind of in my top 10 for a while, but I pushed it out. Onward was in my top 10 because I saw it in like March, and so there's just a whole lot of competition. Mm-hmm. Promising Young Woman was close, and then Matt and I kind of talked me out of it being there. Mm-hmm. And so I have some thoughts on that movie, but it's well done and I like it, but it definitely
out of
is
the
not
top
in my
10 entirely. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if I would have had it higher than 8 anyway.
Oh yeah, that's fair. Huh.
And then The Hunt, which I know caught a lot of flack, and I really think if it weren't for like Trump tweeting about it and the kind of the faux controversy surrounding it, it's really funny. It's not super smart, but it's a funny movie, and I kind of appreciated it for that. But if there's a real runner-up, if there's a real like number 11, where I was kind of trying to decide which one would be in the top 10, probably Relic.
Okay, yeah, I'm still super proud of our review of that.
Yeah, that was a good app.
That was that was a situation where like I came out of that review feeling a lot better about the movie and just really feeling like we kind of nailed it. So
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. As for Tiny, do you already said you don't have any?
None.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have several now that I'm looking at my list of 2020 releases. I'll just go through a few of them as they pop up in front of my eyeballs. I'll say Relic probably also. Just because my position changed so drastically, and it is a very quality movie. A couple of documentaries that I purposely didn't put on my top 10 for reasons that will be revealed as soon as I say them. But hashtag Unfit: The Psychology of Donald Trump, and Totally Under Control, the Alex Gibney documentary about the Trump administration's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Those are both really, really incredible documentaries, like very well done documentaries, but I just couldn't have
a little comfort food, little popcorn flick.
Exactly. Like I couldn't have more than one like COVID-19 related thing on my top 10 list. Like I just couldn't bring myself to do that. So those, and then also The Assistant I thought was spectacular, but just didn't make the cut. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom was fantastic. And I mean, I'll just say this because I don't think it's on anyone's list or anything. I don't know if either of you saw it, but Chadwick Boseman, man, I mean, talk about a movie to like, I mean, obviously it wasn't planned to be his last movie, obviously, but like in terms of an actor having a final performance, like his performance in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is freaking incredible. Like it is fantastic.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, I guess that's all for honorable mentions. Yeah, Sound of Metal, that didn't make the cut. I liked it. Yeah. Yeah, those are my honorable mentions. Yeah, shall we go into our top 10?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we do that, I'm going to splice in one of the recurring co-hosts' top 10. So here is Tiny reading Fekkes' list.
All right, so we have a list from co-host Robert Fekkes. He didn't have a top 10 per se, but he just kind of threw some movies out there. To start from the bottom, I guess, I'll say for worst movie, he had The Old Guard as the worst movie. Interesting entry there. Favorite documentary was Athlete A. Then for pleasant surprise, he had Bill and Ted Face the Music. Biggest disappointment was Wonder Woman 1984. And favorite movie was Tenet. So thanks for that list, Fekkes.
Okay, well, that's Fekkes' stuff. So let's go into our top 10s. So how we usually do this, I don't believe any of us have the same number one. So we're just going to go from 10 to 1, and we're going to go in a circle, essentially, go in a roundtable discussion. So, Mike, do you want to get us kicked off with your number 10 of 2020?
Yes. So my number 10 was kind of a latecomer, and it's His House, which came on Netflix. I think it's Netflix exclusive, not produced by Netflix, but streaming exclusively on Netflix. And it's kind of one of those new-ish, like, prestige horror style movies. A lot of people kind of compared it to like a Jordan Peele style, and Us. I kind of hesitate to do that because I don't like, that feels a little easy, like just because it's black horror. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm a little uncomfortable and like unqualified to make that. More than anything, it's refugee horror, and so it's a metaphor for refugees. And so this couple escapes South Sudan, and they have lost their daughter along the way. And the house that they're given as refugees in England, or a town in England, is haunted. And they are kind of like haunted by their memories, and not to spoil too much, but like they're haunted by their guilt. And it's, horror always does a great job of touching on societal issues and things like that. And I think this one is just kind of another one to throw on that corkboard of like, if you like socially relevant and, politically cognizant horror movies, you kind of need to see this one. It was really, really good. It's one I'll definitely watch come next October. So it's called His House.
Nice.
Cool.
And it is on Netflix. Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Tiny, your number 10?
My number 10 is the documentary 76 Days.
That's my number 10 as well.
Nice.
Interesting.
Yeah, we talked about it on Obsessive Viewer episode 327.
Yes.
Which, by the way, before going any further, I was on the website kind of looking up what we had talked about this year, and so I could reference those episodes during this list, and just want to say great job with the website, man.
Oh,
because you kind of you definitely run that whole thing by yourself, and it's really a big reflection on your efforts, and it's so easy to navigate and search for stuff on there.
Nice.
Just really good job with it. I love the website. Nice job, man. So,
for the record, if you want to see the entire archive, obviously you go to ovpodcast.com, takes you to the archive page for the entire podcast. But if you go to, for me at least, if you want to see my output in 2020, go to obsessiveviewer.com/MattHurt2020, and it has all of the podcast episodes I produced and all of the reviews I wrote. So yeah,
nice.
So thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah. But 76 Days is just such an incredible compilation of very raw documentary filming. It's so interesting to see a documentary with no talking heads, no narrative flow. It's just a raw camera picking up real moments, and I think especially capturing a once-in-a-century thing like a pandemic, a global pandemic, and just having the wherewithal to film it at the epicenter of that pandemic as it's happening is just an unprecedented thing in film. And the fact that they were able to capture it and so much character development, for lack of a better term, is captured. Like you get to know some of these people, and just the progression of it is captured with no prompts or anything. There's no narration. There's nothing. It's just you just watch it and you take it in, and you can pick up on how this thing progressed and how it affected these individual people. It's really remarkable what they were able to achieve with this documentary, and I'd never seen anything like it. It's a really cool movie.
Yes. So I said when I was talking about my honorable mentions that I didn't want to have more than one like COVID era documentary or movie on it. Also, movies I missed and movies I'm probably never going to want to see is Songbird, because that just felt kind of gross. But anyway, so 76 Days, that made the cut for my top 10 specifically because it is that fly on the wall documentary that is just living out this pandemic at the beginning, at the epicenter and everything. And the thing that really spoke to me about it, or an anecdote that I'll share, is that March 16th, I think, was the first day that I worked from home. The company I work for sent everyone to work remote. Everything shut down. Fortunately, I work for a company that didn't have any lapse of employment or anything, so they just sent everyone home. So 95% of the entire company was working remote. And so as I'm sitting there in my apartment working from home, I'm watching, on Netflix they had some quick documentary thing narrated by J.K. Simmons about COVID, and it's just like it was just informational, like saying like, okay, this is what it is. This is why it's different from other viruses, and this is why it's hard to trace and all that stuff. And like he started it, like it started with the narration, J.K. Simmons saying, when COVID like came about and everything, our world changed and everything. And like at that time, March 16th, I was sitting there watching it and I was just like, I mean, at that point I was still thinking like, okay, maybe it's just being blown out of proportion. Maybe it's not. Like it's probably, you know, it's going to go away and everything. Or everyone's making a big deal of it, but it's not going to be that long. Like I was sitting there thinking like, oh, I'll be back in the office in 3 weeks and everything will be back to normal. But having that memory, like that memory of having that response to something and then seeing 76 days, which I don't remember the timing of it, but it takes place, like it's documenting, the outbreak in Wuhan, when they shut down Wuhan, like when they closed it, locked it down and everything. So I don't know where that lines up with, I'm sure it's like a couple of months probably before like March 16th when I had that experience. Mm-hmm. But like actually seeing how it was going in Wuhan and how like just like shots from inside the hospital, people like begging to get inside. But there's like literally no room, and it was an apocalyptic event. And it was, I mean, it is one of the most harrowing and heartbreaking things I've seen like all year and in recent memory. Yeah. So 76 days, number 10, on my top 10. So,
nice.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, good for you guys for watching that, and I am fully aware that I'm like exercising privilege in not watching it, but I just like check myself out from any of that stuff. It's so feel bad.
I don't blame you one bit.
Me either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You what?
We don't.
You don't blame me?
We don't blame me at all. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, even that. It's an incredible documentary. It's an incredible piece of filmmaking, and even that, like, I feel like putting it on my top 10 could be perceived as like a historical like number 10 entry. Yeah. But I think it's more reflective of my experience and our culture's experience and everything. And also I feel like it was really important in terms of documentary filmmaking. It's really important because it provides some very important perspective as we're still in a pandemic. So yeah. Mike, how about your number 9?
So my number 9 is Pixar's Soul, which debuted on Disney Plus. And you know, like as we were getting ready to start this, I was trying to think of what I would say about it, and I always hesitate to like say, like when we're in like the bottom 3 of a top 10, I always have this tendency to be like, well, it's not higher up because it's this and this and this and this. But I feel like Soul was like great for a Pixar movie, but I'll be honest, it hasn't really lasted with me. It's kind of one of those victims of like it not being a great movie year. In fact, if I had my druthers, I would move His House up above this one. It is really good and it's really moving. And I didn't love the like before life stuff. I was a little worried that the whole movie was going to take place there. But then when it finally, you know, when he returns to Earth, it picked up a little bit more. And I don't know. It's like, I don't know that the movie had a strong message. It was like the movie ended and it was like message, just life. Thanks for watching.
Life finds a way.
I don't know. That's terrible. That's a really bad review of that movie. But like looking at this list, those are my feelings, and I like that's how I remember it.
Honestly, I mean it's higher up on my list. I'll say that, but I totally get that. Like when I saw it, I was moved by it. I was incredibly moved by it. But there was still like something that I feel like when I was watching it, I was expecting it to go a certain way, and I was expecting like that Pixar emotional like gut punch resonance. That it didn't quite do it the way that I was expecting it to. Like it still resonated, but it was in a different way. And that's what kind of detracted it from.
I just felt like, can I spoil the movie? I feel like I have to put a little.
I haven't seen it yet.
Tiny hasn't seen it yet.
The lesson he learns at the end isn't earned.
Okay, Interesting. Yeah,
I'm really down on a movie that I put in my top 10 of the year.
Yeah, and I try not to do that either. Like, yeah, okay, that's fair.
I feel bad. I almost felt pressured to put that in my top 10 because it's on so many like top 5 of the year lists.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I mean, in a year that has 2 Pixar movies, like Onward wasn't even really on my radar, and like I probably connected with that a little bit. I don't know if I'd say I connected with it more than Soul. But I mean, it was more like that was back in March, and I'm just like, I
just over March.
Yeah. So that's your number 9.
Number 9, sorta.
Mm-hmm. Tiny, how about your number 9?
My number 9 is one that you mentioned in your honorable mentions, Matt.
Oh.
It's #Unfit: The Psychology of Donald Trump.
Okay.
I watched several documentaries, so be prepared. I know that's not unusual for me.
Mm-hmm.
But we had talked about it in Obsessive Viewer episode 324. So you can reference that for more extensive thoughts. But I was really intrigued by it because I had always heard you're not supposed to diagnose someone from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit unethical for a medical professional or a psychological professional to do. And this documentary completely dispelled that notion, and they did it convincingly and really relieved me from anytime I would see articles or whatever about psychologists say this about Donald Trump. I was like, I don't know. I can't buy that because they didn't sit down and talk to the man. It's a completely different thing. But this documentary completely dispelled that, and then laid out in beautiful fashion just how unfit the man really is.
Yeah.
And which is an opinion I already had. So it was a little bit of, you could also call this #confirmation bias.
Right.
But I do think it is a psychologically relevant and psychologically researched documentary, and it's laid out quite well as to why that hashtag is, or why he is unfit, why Donald Trump was unfit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, I just enjoyed it for that. I thought it was really professional as well. Just all the so many different psychologists and professionals concurred with the opinion, and that was really encouraging. They didn't cut any corners in that regard. So I really enjoyed that documentary.
Me too. I mean, if it's the thing is, like, I had 3 COVID or political related documentaries on my radar for the top 10. So I had 76 Days, #Unfit, and Totally Under Control. And the reason that I chose 76 Days is because that's about the moment. That's about the experience of the COVID-19 outbreak and the pandemic and everything. Mm-hmm. Whereas Unfit and Totally Under Control is specifically about Trump's mentality and his incompetence with reaction to it. And I felt like it was more important to have 76 Days on it rather than those other 2. Just a chronicle of the experience of the COVID-19 pandemic. But #Unfit was really, really chillingly compelling. And they also make such a strong case, or such a strong argument for not only Trump being a malignant narcissist and just a dangerous person who is unfit for the office of the presidency, but also it goes into like his fascist leanings, and like it's not it backs it up with actual fact, and like comparing him to comparing his tactics with that of Mussolini and just history. And I felt like that was just a really, just, again, probably confirmation bias, like you said, but really compelling and chilling.
Nice.
So yeah.
Yep.
Is it my turn?
It is.
Okay. So speaking of, unique world leaders, I guess I can't transition that. So my number 9 is this movie that, so my list, I have to I feel like I have to preface this a little bit. Since I am a member of the IFJ, I get access to screeners. So there's some on my list that are littler seen movies. So this movie is, my number 9 is a movie called The 20th Century. It's the directorial debut of a filmmaker named Matthew Rankin. And it is, it's kind of a total delight. It's basically, I'll read the plot summary since it's probably not on a lot of people's radar. Toronto, Canada, 1899, William Lyon Mackenzie King fervently believes that he is destined to become prime minister. And this is such a wacky, off-the-wall kind of movie. Like my blurb on Letterboxd was that it's like if Wes Anderson and Monty Python had a baby and then let David Lynch babysit it for an afternoon. Because the kind of aesthetic and just the weird and unique filmmaking techniques utilized in it is just so weird and off the wall. And it's probably off-putting for a lot of people, but it's something that is probably the most unique movie that I saw in 2020. Even if it's a composite of those 3 filmmakers' styles, but it's just, it's so weird, and it was a delight. And I kind of liked it as this reprieve from the horrors of 2020 and the heavy duty drama stuff of movies in 2020. So it's called The 20th Century, and it's my number 9.
Sweet.
Yeah. Michael.
Yeah. Even know that I've heard of it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it either.
I hadn't heard of it either until I got the screener, honestly. But I was really taken with it. If you see it on VOD or something, I recommend checking it out.
Okay.
Yep. Mike, hit us with your number 8.
Yeah, my number 8 is Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Nice.
And it was one of the most delightful experiences I had watching movies this year. In fact, looking at the rest of my top 7, none of the rest of them are happy movies. This one is just a feel good. Like, they set out to make the happiest movie possible. I was a huge Bill and Ted fan growing up. Like, one of my best friends in elementary school and junior high, like, we pretended to be Bill and Ted. We would quote Bill and Ted. And so when I moved away after 6th grade, we lost touch a little bit, but we haven't seen each other in 20-ish years. And we made a promise to each other that we would watch that movie together in theaters when it came out. And obviously theaters are closed, so we didn't. So I did actually buy that movie for $24 or whatever it came out, so that my friend Fred and I could watch it together. And so we FaceTimed each other, or Skype. I don't remember what we did, but we FaceTimed each other and watched the movie and caught up a little bit. And so my memory of that is tied with watching it. But also I think it's a really fun kind of way to end the trilogy. Again, I won't spoil it either, but like their solution to like fulfilling the prophecy is pretty awesome. They do some fun time travel stuff, as Bill and Ted does. But with the new, like, the MCU and Avengers Endgame kind of changed the way we talk about time travel in popular culture, you know?
Okay.
I mean, these are already theories people have discussed, but in terms of popular culture, and Bill and Ted Face the Music kind of does that version of time travel.
Okay.
Really good. I think Keanu was a little Keanu-y. He was a little tired, it looked like. but Alex Winter as Bill, and then Bridget Lundy Payne as little Billy, so Ted's daughter. They were just fantastic in that movie. So worth it for the nostalgia, worth it for the performances. Really fun movie.
Nice. I didn't see it. Honestly, I've never been too hot on Bill and Ted. Nothing against it, but it's never been something that I gravitated to, although it does hold the distinction of one of my earliest movie going experiences was seeing a double feature of both the two Bill and Ted movies at a drive-in when I was a kid. So yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that
stick with you.
No, not really. I never really I was too young to really grasp it. And I don't think I've really properly revisited it. So yeah.
Same for me. Yeah.
Cool. Tony, how about your number 8?
Yeah, my number 8 is Sound of Metal,
Nice.
which was released on Amazon Prime this year. I don't have a ton to say about it. It's a pretty unique movie. I think it's there's a delightful piece of irony in the fact that the main character of the film goes deaf, and deafness plays such a huge part of the plot of the film. But the sound of the movie is so important and such a feature of the movie, and that's clearly intentional. But it's I've never been more cognizant of how sound is captured and used in a film than this before, and to my great delight, I had that experience with this movie. And that's just one of the great things about it. Riz Ahmed has an incredible performance. Really loved him in this. I think it was an Oscar-nominated worthy performance for me. And just the progression of his character is, I feel like it's very subtle, but it's so well done that you really connect to it. And there's also some underlying features of the relationship between the two main characters that I think are again they're subtle, but they play such a big part, especially in the end. I thought this was going to be a very difficult movie to end, but they did it so beautifully. One of my favorite endings of the year, I think. Just a beautiful ending. It's such a cool movie. It's really unique. I think this, of the 3 movies I've mentioned, this one would have been an honorable mention, even in a really good year, just because of how one of a kind and unique the movie is. And it's, I can't think of any other movie that comes close to this as far as being its own thing and doing its own thing. It's really cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't make my top 10, but yeah, I mean, it is spectacular. For all those reasons. Yeah.
Nice.
My number 8 is another a movie that it's not readily available for people. It was a screener I got. It's actually coming out a wider release in February, but it is Minari with Stephen Yeun. It is about a family in 1980s Nebraska. I don't know where they. Oh, Arkansas. That's right. So, it's a Korean family, Korean American family that moves to Arkansas from California in order to. The father, played by Stephen Yeun, is trying to, he's going for the American dream. He's trying to farm and start up a small farm and just live off the land and support his family and everything. And the movie is just a beautifully told story of this family drama as they face the struggle of capturing the American dream. It's an incredible movie, and there's a lot of really just incredible character beats amongst the family that by the time the movie was over, I was like, I want to live with this family more. They're a delight to live with, and they're a delight to like laugh with and cry with. It's a really beautifully told story. I do want to single out Stephen Yeun does give a fantastic performance, and it's notable that if he's nominated for Best Actor, that will be the first Asian American Best Actor nominee, which I think is just a shocking stat and really interesting. Yeah, but it's an incredible movie, and I also want to say that there is a child actor, Alan Kim, who plays I think he's like 7 years old in the movie. I mean, that is one of like the best child acting performances I've seen in a while. He is fantastic, and a lot of the emotional crux of the movie kind of hinges on his experiences with like his grandmother character in the movie, and it's not. I don't know. I really, really appreciated the way that the story was told, and it's kind of it's an incredible family drama. So yeah, that's Minari, and that's my number 8.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that on a few lists. That's awesome.
It sounds really good. Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yep.
So my number 7 is Underwater, which was an early movie that I saw, excuse me, in theaters, and it really blew me away to watch it in theaters. It's kind of one of those ones where you're like, don't watch this at home. It's like a theater type experience. T.J. Miller is a little too T.J. Miller for my taste in that movie, but other than that, the cast is really great, especially Kristen Stewart, who, excuse me, I had this kind of unfair stigma against, from the Twilight movies and just interviews early on in her career. She's a little aloof or standoffish, and I took that to be unlikable, whatever. But man, she has done some stuff the last couple of years that's just so impressive. And in this, she is like an action star. She is definitely doing like a Ripley from Alien type of thing, and totally selling it. The scares are well earned. And then I won't spoil the ending, but there are creatures, and then there is a kind of a main creature that when that is revealed is one of, I mean, it probably, I mean, I know the list was small, but it was probably my favorite theater experience of the year.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Seeing that. Definitely a super high recommend. Easy top 10 for me. Underwater.
If I could chime in, my favorite movie theater experience in 2020 was when I saw Onward, and a family left about 10 minutes into the movie because their baby puked on the floor right next to me. So if that wasn't an omen for 2020, I don't know what it was.
Sign of things.
Yep.
Jeez.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out. I didn't see Underwater, so yeah. Tiny, your number 7?
Number 7, Matt's gonna hate me. The Social Dilemma.
Oh, okay. No, it's fine.
It's a documentary we talked about in Obsessive Viewer episode 325. Definitely listen to that for further thoughts. But why this made the list for me, and why I think this is a great documentary for people to watch, is I think this is the best representation for how our data is used against us on social media, or how it can be used to manipulate us. It can be aimed at us, and how just how easy it is for whoever to manipulate us on social media. There are plenty of criticisms to levy at this documentary. There's quite a bit of hamminess. But I think the construct they came up with was an incredible metaphor, and the personification they used was I think just so poignant for the times, and this interesting era of privacy and data and information that we're going through and are going to continue to go through until Who knows what will change?
The singularity,
something like that. Yeah, who knows? But it's. I thought it was so fascinating for that reason, and I think it's something that a lot of people should watch, and hopefully they can get past the hamminess of it to really get a grasp on just what's happening, what can happen to you. I think that's something we talked about in the episode, is that I think we all still have a choice as to how manipulated we can be on social media. But it's this lays out just how dangerous it can be, and does it pretty well, in my opinion.
Well, I saw an ad on Facebook that proves to me that you're wrong.
Right.
No, I mean, I don't besmirch that or anything. Anything. That's great. Yeah. I just, the farther I got away from it, the more I just kind of was like, okay, yeah. I mean, it was fine.
Gotcha.
Cool. Real quick, I just realized I'm wearing my shirt inside out. So if that's not a metaphor for 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. So talking about, social, stigmas, like, let's end that one. But, so anyway. Yeah. Okay. So my number 7 is another documentary, actually. And it is, the documentary, The Last Blockbuster. Directed by Taylor Morden. It's a documentary about the last remaining Blockbuster video in Bend, Oregon. And I was really enamored with this documentary. It is, I mean, it's basically just a chronicle of the last Blockbuster, and also just a celebration of not only Blockbuster as a company, which is a weird kind of thing to say, but also just it is at times a eulogy and a celebration of just the video store idea, and how that is kind of this thing that is being completely lost in time. Like, it's gone for the most part. And yeah, I was really pleased with this documentary. It has a lot of good talking heads, like interviews and stuff. Like Kevin Smith is involved. Kevin Smith is interviewed, Sam Levine, Ione Skye, Adam Brody, Brian Posehn, Paul Scheer, Doug Benson, a bunch of people. And, yeah, it's Jamie Kennedy as well. It's a really good, documentary, and it's such a unique, thing to watch, in 2021 or 2020 because it is this nostalgic view of Blockbuster, which in its heyday was this massive corporation that had, like, it kind of seems weirdly anachronistic to have this wistful nostalgia for a bygone thing that was just completely usurped and is almost completely gone from the culture. So The Last Blockbuster, my number 7. Really,
not to review that movie because I haven't seen it, and it definitely seems like something I want to see. But yeah, that kind of thing makes me think about like other things like that have also been usurped. We just don't know about, right? Things that were like as prevalent as something like Blockbuster that are just gone.
You mean like in media or just in general?
Before our time.
Oh, okay.
100 years ago used to be massive, and now it's just gone.
I don't know about gone, but like train travel.
Oh, yeah.
Used to be one of the most common forms of travel, and now
That's true.
Almost no one uses it.
That's true.
Anyways, yeah.
Dueling.
But yeah,
all right. Yeah, dueling. All right, so my number 6, Tiny, is The Social Dilemma.
Oh, interesting.
Nice.
And I have said this a couple times, but I think the dilemma that documentary presents is the most important of our time. And even as prevalent as the issue is, and as much as people are talking about it, and as kind of popular as that documentary was for about 10 minutes, I still don't think people are talking about it enough. I know that, you know, in this election cycle, we had some more pressing issues to deal with. But in 4 years from now, when we're talking about maybe a re-election or a new candidate, I really think we need to hear about what they have to say about internet privacy and security, because it's a thing I now think about a lot, and the way our phones manipulate us in ways that we don't know. And Tiny, you mentioned like you have to be careful with the amount of stuff, like how much you let it control you. And I think in a lot of ways we don't have control over that.
Yeah.
And even, you and I have seen that movie. I still, there are ways that my phone gets me that makes me incredibly uncomfortable. And yeah, it is hokey, but I also think it was for a particular audience. And I hope that high schoolers kind of got it, because I think it's for high schoolers. But it's it's so important. I can't stress that enough. For so many people. I mean, there are obviously huge issues just on a global scale. Climate change probably being the most deadly. But this is something we're just not talking about enough. And I had to include that on my list because I think it really puts it in a really digestible package. There's a particular line that my wife and I gravitated to a lot, that like other things that you own are tools. A bicycle is a tool. If you don't use the bicycle unless you need to go somewhere, then you use it. Your phone was meant to be a tool, but we're now so dependent upon it. It uses us now. And that's an issue. And it's terrifying.
Yeah, I think the line that we are the product, that's disturbing.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, and I don't besmirch anyone that documentary. I didn't dislike the documentary. It's just not on my top 10 or my honorable mentions. It's just, it's so weird because like now that like the post-election, post-inauguration thing, like the post-Trump era thing now in my head, because like I don't know where I'm going with this, but I have been so like a couple weeks ago when the insurrection happened at the Capitol, like my mind broke a little bit and my heart broke a little bit for the country.
Yeah.
And the thing that I kind of that snapped with me was that these are thousands of people who are following just not good information, like information that has not been proven, was not given any evidence for, and was actively disproven in dozens of court cases being thrown out. Yet they still did this thing, and in the process ruined their lives, all for a false narrative that they were fed and ate up. And over the last year, I have gotten into many like obnoxious social media conversations and debates and arguments and stuff with people that are just entrenched in that line of thinking, or I wouldn't even say in that line of thinking, just people that are entrenched in lines of thinking that are different from my own and different from my personal beliefs and ideologies and everything. And when that happened, it just snapped with me. I was like, okay, I understand what the social dilemma is saying. I understand that, there are bubbles that are created with social media and targeted ads and targeting through social media. But on the other hand, my kind of go-to thing, and it's kind of wearing off now, because I'm becoming more conscious of, the bigger problem. But in reaction to the Capitol thing was that we all have the same access to the same information. Like, even though if it's being pointed at us in a certain way, if it's being fed to us a certain way, we still have the access to the same internet as a whole. And I kind of can't really, I don't like the idea of being like, well, we're not as in control as we think we are. I know that we're not in control or whatever, but I still kind of want that optimism of, theoretically everyone should be able to think critically about the things that they see and hear and read. But I don't know. Maybe it's a naive thing, but that's kind of
I don't know. I'm pretty optimistic, and I try to get hopeful too. But people are really dumb.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was
the George Carlin line I've been using a lot lately is like, think of how dumb the average person is.
Mm-hmm.
Half of people are dumber than that.
Yeah. I agree. That's fantastic. Parting thought on that, and then we can move on, is that the kind of the coda to my weird rant there and tangent is that just like a couple days ago, I made just a quick like rice and sausage like dish that I made, and I was thinking, and I was talking to in a group chat with some friends, and I was like, I'm thinking about adding some ketchup to it. That'd be kind of cool. And I did, and it tasted fine. But like within 10 minutes of that, I took a screenshot of something on Facebook, like someone's post, and shared it in that same group chat. And then they were like, "Oh, ketchup." And then I was like, "What?" And like in the screenshot, there was an ad for ketchup, and like that's not that's not a surprise. But the surprise is I didn't even notice it when I took the screenshot and shared it in the group chat. like that is alarming to me. So yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tiny, you're number 6.
My number 6 is the movie Tenet. Which I haven't talked about on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But Matt, you and I messaged about it a little bit. Here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I included it in my top 10. I am undeniably a huge Christopher Nolan fan. Mm-hmm. And I have loved every movie he's ever made. And I think a lot of people I feel like his popularity has waned. I think a lot of people didn't connect with Dunkirk. Tenet had the unfortunate fortune of being released with the pandemic and just got completely screwed by that. But I think if it had more popularity, or if there were more people who had seen it or whatever, I still don't think it would have been as well received. Mm-hmm. I think it is a weaker entry from him in that regard, because I think the characters weren't there. I think the character relationships weren't there. But as a concept for a movie, it's just really unbelievable. Just an incredible concept for a movie. And it's something that like I don't know how someone comes up with that idea in their head, and so like Inception falls into that category as well, but it had the benefit of being so well done and being much more palatable as an idea and much more linear. It's layered, obviously, that's kind of the concept of the movie, but it's linear and you can follow it much easier. But Tenet, basically by the time we got to the climax of the movie, I was just along for the ride, because I was like, I don't know what's going on here. I'm going to try to watch this and pick up what I can pick up and enjoy what I can enjoy, and try to pick up more on further viewings, because this is so nuts what's happening right here. It's just the concept was just insane and so freaking cool. And just all the filming techniques, and I think Kenneth Branagh was really, really chilling in this movie. Just completely vapid character, and just so just void of human emotion, with the exception of just anger, just deep anger, and truly an evil villain. So I liked him a lot. And I was so enthralled by it. I was confused a lot of the time, but I did catch up and was able to follow the movie, and was blown away by so many moments of it. And it's an incredible movie that I really want to watch again, and really dive into more. It's definitely bears repeat viewings. But it is a very flawed movie, but despite those flaws, it's incredible. And I really wish more people had seen it and it had been more of a zeitgeisty movie like Inception or even Interstellar, was a popular movie that a lot of people saw, and it had some controversy to it as well, kind of up and down reviews of it. But I
love it.
What's that?
I love Interstellar. It's one of the best movies ever, man.
I still haven't revisited it since the theater. Yeah.
Have you really?
Yeah, I mean, and it's not out of just like I'm not bitter about it or anything. I'm just like, it's a movie I didn't connect with. Fuck it.
I watched it in 2020 and loved it just as much as
nice.
I did. Yeah, so
I have a digital copy of it, so I'll watch it eventually. But
right. But yeah, I really I was just so blown away by Tenet as a concept. It's super cool, and but I think a lot of people have faulted it, and I don't think they're wrong. I'll put it that way. Okay. I don't think anybody's wrong. I think it's just a really, really subjective movie.
A peek behind the podcast curtain here. Not last night, but the night before. The Monday night of this week, a few days ago, Ben and I recorded next week's episode of Obsessive Viewer. It's an Ebert's Great Movies List review episode. And on the potpourri section, he brings up Tenet, and not to spoil it, but not to spoil the episode, but I go on a bit of a rant, so I'm not going to bring any negativity into your reading of your number 6 from your top 10.
Okay.
Just wait until you hear that episode.
Later.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to listen to very cogent arguments against the movie because I think it's a movie that is totally ripe for being shredded.
But would you say you're hesitant?
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, Matt, your number 6.
Okay, yeah, my number 6. Let's see, where is it? Okay, my number 6 is The Vast of Night, the directorial debut of Andrew Patterson. It's available to stream on Amazon Prime, by the way. This is a movie that it's tailor-made for me, honestly, and my sensibilities. It's a science fiction love letter to classic science fiction. I mean, right from the opening shot. The opening shot is a kind of 50s style, like, living room setup with this, like, old school TV that's showing just a black and white image, and there is a Rod Serling impression, a Rod Serling like sound-alike voiceover that is essentially doing like the Twilight Zone opening narration, but for this fictitious show that brings us into this world of the Vast of Night. And just on an aesthetic level, it is a Matt Hurt movie. It's incredible. Like, they have a ton of like Easter eggs and little like homages to like War of the Worlds and the Twilight Zone and Rod Serling and everything. And I love it for that. And the performances are all really good. The dialogue is fantastic. It has some really great dialogue moments. And the cinematography as well is fantastic. There are a couple of lengthy tracking shots that are just, I mean, like there's a scene where it goes one continuous shot, or at least it appears to be, where it goes from one location through a deserted town into a gymnasium that's filled with spectators watching a basketball game, goes through the court, and then up the bleachers, through the window, and then to a second location, or to a third location from that, where it ends. And it's like, that was one of the most impressive filmmaking sequences I saw in 2020. And I love it for that. And yeah, I really dug The Vast of Night. That's my number 6.
We talked about that shot, the next day. Mm-hmm. Just in our little chat, and I mentioned that it felt like an homage to Halloween. It looked very like Halloween.
And that totally blew my mind. There's an article from the cinematographer that I admittedly haven't read where he talks about that. Not to brag, but he also liked my tweet about that shot. But anyway, I'm curious to go back and check out that article and see if they mention Halloween being an influence, because totally get that vibe in retrospect.
Yeah. It made me think of The Secret in Their Eyes. There's an incredible tracking shot at a sporting event in that movie. The original Argentinian version, not the American remake. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. And I'm going to mention Vast of Night later on. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I will not be mentioning Vast of Night.
Okay.
But you're up, Mike.
Nice.
I really bought into like the first half.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the characters were good, and I really liked that the kind of main boy and his like quick line delivery was really good. But by the time they get to the old lady and she tells her story, I was a little bored.
That's fair. And now we're going to go into our number 5s, but first I'm just going to really quickly read Kyrsten's top 5 for 2020. I don't think. Okay, so in number 5 is Sonic the Hedgehog. Number 4 is Wonder Woman 1984, and number 3 is Birds of Prey. Number 2 is The Lovebirds, and number 1 is Love and Monsters, which she and I reviewed on the podcast, Love and Monsters, fairly recently. So check that on the feed. So those are Kyrsten's top 5, and Mike, do you want to bring us into your number 5?
Yes, top 5. These are the good ones. I feel good about these. Again, I don't know that they would compete with some of my favorite years, but I do like these. So my number 5 is I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
Oh, nice.
Which is the Charlie Kaufman straight to Netflix, starring Jessie Buckley and Jesse Plemons and Toni Collette. I read the book of this, I think, just on a whim, like before the movie was announced, and the movie was announced shortly after that. And I really liked the book. It was trippy to read, but I really liked that contemplative style of reading. At the risk of sounding like a hipster, I know that not a lot of people liked this movie. And what I'm reading is that if you read the book beforehand, generally there's a correlation that you liked the movie a lot. And if you didn't, you probably didn't like the movie. Knowing what was going on, having read the book, I was able to kind of dive into the long stretches of dialogue. It's a very, very talky movie and super ambiguous. Mm-hmm. And I have been known on this podcast to be a little reticent toward ambiguity, but I take a particular shine to really well-written and interesting dialogue. So, like, I'm able to forgive certain bits of ambiguity if they give me something interesting to watch along the way. So, for instance, not to dog on your movie that you like, but in Vast of Night, there are just moments, like, I'm not a big shots guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like well-constructed scenes, but, like, long contemplative takes that just move into something don't interest me. Mm-hmm. But if it's two characters, if it's a simple two-shot and they're having an interesting conversation, then I really buy into it. And this movie was essentially that with trippiness, the back half. And it spoke to me. I kind of, this is not really in my wheelhouse. You mentioned like a Matt movie. I wouldn't say I'm Thinking of Ending Things is a Mike movie, but something about it really spoke to me. It's kind of, it has one foot in the horror genre. And Toni Collette is kind of doing her Toni Collette thing. She's just so fabulous. I'm like madly in love with her. Mm-hmm. And it's just good. Jesse Plemons is great. And I don't know a lot about Jessie Buckley, but she was great too. Mm-hmm. And I just had a lot of fun with it.
Nice. I will be talking about that later, but yeah, okay. I loved it. It's interesting because I didn't read the book, but I love the movie, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I really, really, really did not like the movie. I didn't read the book either. To your point, Mike. So, the dialogue scenes, I felt like while they were well constructed and well acted, just really didn't affect anything, and were mostly about not mundane subjects, but about just things that didn't matter, I guess, or didn't seem to affect what the characters were thinking. I don't know. It just. And the mind trippiness, I didn't mind. That's cool. That's a Charlie Kaufman thing, and I've liked some of his other movies, but I just could not get behind this. I did not enjoy it. But the performances were incredible. Toni Collette, I cannot stop watching her. She's incredible. But yeah, I did not like the movie at all.
Fair enough.
But I would never call it a bad movie. It's definitely not a bad movie. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would recommend if you're interested in Jessie Buckley. She was in a movie last year, 2019, called Wild Rose that she was fantastic in.
Cool.
And Chernobyl. She was in Chernobyl on HBO, which is an insanely good series. Mm-hmm. I know you're not into TV right now, Mike, but it's insanely good.
She was also in Doolittle. So yeah.
Okay.
Did you guys watch that?
No.
Me either.
Okay, and then also she's going to be in the new Alex Garland movie, Men. That was just announced. So my number 5 is something that we've already talked about a little bit, so I won't spend too much time on it, but it's Pixar's Soul by Pete Docter. Soul, to me, even though I did have some, not necessarily qualms, but it just didn't really go the way I was really hoping for it to go at the end. But I still think it is a very strong. I don't want to say return to form, but it's a strong kind of echo of like Pixar's Inside Out. It does this thing that Pixar has been, especially in Inside Out, very, very successful and good at, is taking complex existential, psychological, like concepts and presenting them in a way that is approachable and understandable and breaks down the complexities to communicate like the deeper meaning of them and like the implications of like these abstract and philosophical concepts in a way that is both approachable for kids. I don't know how approachable this movie is for kids, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
But like as an adult watching this, it's like they're dealing with incredibly heavy concepts, and it just the way that they break those down to their barest and just do like create a story through this abstract concept is really remarkable to me. Also, a character enters the body of a cat. So, yeah. Yeah. What'd you say?
Letterbox.
Yep, my letterbox. So yeah, that's my number 5, Soul. Mike, do you want to bring us to your?
Well, you skipped me on number 5.
Did I?
Yeah, you totally skipped over me.
Oh shit!
What the fuck, man?
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Well, because I kind of took the mic I was responding to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, you're okay.
Tiny, do you want to give us your number 5?
Well, it'd be really brief. It's the documentary "Totally Under Control," which you mentioned in your honorable mentions. Mm-hmm. I love it because the movie was sort of presented. The documentary was almost presented as like a prosecutor's case against Donald Trump and his administration and how they responded to the COVID-19 outbreak. And it's just constructed so well. It's literally point by point, piece of evidence by piece of evidence as to how badly they fucked that up. And unequivocally, it was a mistake and it was a horrible response. And I think factually they laid out how you cannot make an argument that Donald Trump and his administration did a good job, especially at the beginning of this. And they just absolutely hit the nail on the head. And it was a pretty objective documentary. I don't think there was a lot of opinion giving. It was just like showing, hey, this is a fact, and they did not respond correctly to this fact.
Yeah.
And that's just, it was just beat by beat, and it seriously felt like a courtroom case against the defendant. That's what it felt like, and it was beautifully crafted, and I loved it for that. Such a good documentary.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it too. Mike, do you want to bring us to your number 4?
Yeah, we can figure. Okay. So my number 4 is Max Barbacow's Palm Springs.
Nice.
Andy Samberg, Kristen Milioti, J.K. Simmons. I love this movie. Gosh, this was such a... I mean, I love Groundhog Day, so the Groundhog Day concept obviously speaks to me. One of the things I love in that type of concept is like to see what people do with the amount of time, and also, which I know is like the point of the movie, but like how each movie deals with like how long they're in the time loop. I think that to me is interesting, and kind of like what it does to the psyche of the people within. I also thought it was a really cool twist on a romantic comedy. My wife's taste in movies is fairly limited. She really rather watch a romantic comedy if we were going to watch something together. So we watched, kind of a few weeks before this, we watched They Came Together.
Nice.
Which I know is one of your favorites.
Yep.
She didn't love that. It was a little too silly for her. And for me, I kind of like smart, but with a twist of something. And Palm Springs offers that. I kind of like the like neon destination wedding aesthetic that it offers. And it's a really like, I think they have chemistry on screen that's palpable. I really loved Palm Springs. I'll watch that again soon for sure.
Nice. I loved it too, and I'll talk about it here soon.
Nice. I didn't get a chance to see it.
Oh, nice. I highly recommend it. It is available on Hulu.
Sweet.
Yeah. Tiny, your number 4?
My number 4 is The Trial of the Chicago 7.
Okay.
I am an unabashed Aaron Sorkin fan. Just unflinchingly love his work. And so I can't separate from that because I love his style, and this movie definitely had his style. The performances were just so great. I think I love Sacha Baron Cohen. I think he's written off as a very silly actor. But even just how brilliant is Borat, right? It's such a brilliant character, and it's wrapped up in all this comedy and this kind of gotcha stuff, but it's just a really brilliant acting. And I think the ease with which he played his character in this movie really exemplifies just how insanely talented of an actor he is. Yeah. I thought he was worthy of an Oscar nomination in this movie. I absolutely loved him. But just, this is such an interesting event that I knew next to nothing about.
Same.
I knew the 1964 Democratic Convention in Chicago was a very controversial event, and a lot of the riots happened and all that stuff, but I just didn't know much about it, and especially the Chicago 7. I just didn't know nothing about them, and so I was really interested to learn more about it. And I think it was crafted as somewhat of a courtroom drama, but there was a ton of comedy throughout it, and which Aaron Sorkin is wont to do. But it's just crafted so well and acted so well, and I think Aaron Sorkin's style was a great way to tell this story. I think if you go too serious, it just would have gotten lost in would have gotten lost, I think, or it wouldn't have worked. There's so many moments in this event and this trial that were just funny on their face or just comedy on their face, and he knows how to blend those two things so well. He knows how to bounce back and forth between a hilarious moment and something incredibly serious, and that's a really difficult skill. And I think he put that on display remarkably well in this movie. And I really loved it, but I totally admit that I'm just the biggest Sorkin fan, so I think that has a lot to do with it. But it's a great movie.
There's nothing wrong with that. It didn't make my top 10, even though I think when I saw it, I was very high on it. I wrote a review of it on the website, and I really enjoyed it. It just didn't make my list or honorable mentions or anything. But I will say that it has one of the best ensemble performances. Definitely of 2020. It's really a well-crafted movie. So
nice.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So my number 4 is going to be kind of a controversial one for us here, I think, or maybe not. Who knows? It's Promising Young Woman. I put it at my number 4. This is a movie that I was very high on it when I saw it. This movie, I think, struck such a nerve with me, and was really a powerful statement in the way it was communicating its central character and her kind of her arc throughout the movie as it pertains to this this male-dominated world that we live in, and this like doling out consequences for heinous behavior perpetrated by men against women. And I saw it once, and I was very interested. I was very taken with it, and then the more it settled with me, it just kind of like has broken down a little bit, and I need to revisit it, because when I first saw it, I was like, it could be my number 1 movie. But like through conversations with Mike and with some other people, I just feel like some of the things that didn't work for other people, or some of the things that made that angered other people, worked for me a surprising amount. And I think that it overall, the kind of the main aesthetic and tone that the movie struck is so unique in the way it's developing and communicating its kind of central themes and arguments, I guess, against societal sheltering of heinous behavior and looking the other way and stuff. It worked for me, and I don't know. So that's my number 4, and it's Promising Young Woman. And I will go on record and say that Carey Mulligan gave one of the best performances of the year in that movie for me. So yeah, Promising Young Woman,
for sure.
Number 4.
I want to see that one.
Yeah, it's good. Mike, want to bring us into your number 3?
Yes, my number 3 is a horror movie, Gretel and Hansel.
Oh, nice.
Directed by Oz Perkins, Anthony Perkins' son. And it's one of the movies I saw twice this year because it's weird. It's kind of an avant-garde. It's very much a movie where tone is the focal point and atmosphere is the focal point. The performances are good, but they're secondary. The story is, well, it's the fairy tale, Hansel and Gretel, but it's also minuscule. Really, the point here is the tone. And seeing it in theaters, in the aspect ratio that was unusual, and the color grading that was unusual, and just the it's funny that I said I'm not a shots guy. Listen, I contain multitudes. It's very hard to figure out what movies I like. There's something about the tone of this movie that struck just the exact right chord I needed at the time. Also, pretty strong feather in its cap is that it's only 87 minutes. My kingdom for 90-minute movies. And just it was like the whole movie just had this eerie dread to it. And then when they meet the witch in the cottage, and she's kind of doing witchy things, and she's like, offering potions to Gretel. It's, there's a touch of the feminist switch in this movie. I really don't think it like hits you over the head, but man, I feel like if this was an A24 movie, people would be drooling over it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of flew under the radar. Nobody talked about it, and it went away. But I definitely want people to remember this movie, because if you want fairy tale-ish tone, not super scary horror, it's great. I loved it.
Nice. It didn't make my top 10. It would probably be like at the tail end of my honorable mentions, though. If only because Oz Perkins, man, his style, I was really taken with it.
Yeah.
And he also directed an episode of The Twilight Zone this season, and it was, again, similar to this. It was a very uniquely visual story that plays with some really interesting things. And I had no idea that he was Anthony Perkins' son until I read about it, like when I was doing research for The Twilight Zone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and like when I read that, I was like, it just blew my mind for some reason. It was just like, that's so awesome.
I have seen all of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. It's kind of that same thing, atmosphere, but not as interesting. Okay. I was a little bored by it. And The Black Coat's Daughter is actually really good, but it can be tedious.
Okay.
But it's only 90 minutes, so give it a whirl.
Sweet.
Nice.
Sweet. Yeah. So, Tiny?
My number 3 is The Vast of Night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which I talked about in Obsessive Viewer episode 321.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely listen to that episode. We went into more detail, but just to echo everything Matt said, I'm totally, and also to borrow one of Mike's terms, I'm totally a shots guy. Like that will completely suck me into a movie and steal it for me. So this movie was all of that. It just gorgeous camera work, completely sucked me in, and I couldn't stop watching it. I did mention in my review, the biggest flaw of the movie to me is the lighting. It was so freaking dark, and I don't understand that choice. It drove me nuts throughout the movie, but everything else was just on point. Mike mentioned the part with the older woman telling her story, and that was one of my favorite performances of the year from that old woman, and I don't even remember her name. And it was just, it blew me away because it was a static camera. She wasn't, his camera wasn't moving. It was just one actor crushing it. And I loved that part of that movie. It was so cool. And I like how it wasn't, we didn't there was no reveal of the monster or whatever, the classic reveal, wasn't there. And I've always been more of a fan of that, in horror, thrillers, sci-fi. I think that's really fun. But I also understand why it bothers people. So I don't fault it or credit it too much for that, but it worked for me. I'll say that. But yeah, just for me, it was the camera work, and then the main character, his quick-witted stuff, his radio guy personality, I really enjoyed. Such a cool movie. It just had that vintage feel to it that I really loved.
Yeah, something else about Vast of Night, real quick, is that when I was rewatching it, I was sitting there thinking, like, yeah, okay, of course I like this movie a lot because, obviously the aforementioned science fiction homages and stuff, but it's also like, okay, but also the kind of cool main character guy is a radio personality who is like, who speaks into a microphone a lot, so like that kind of resonated with me.
Right.
Since I'm super cool too. But yeah, so that's cool. Shall I go on to my number 3?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So my number 3 is Nomadland by Chloe Zhao. Sorry. She previously directed The Rider, which I didn't see, and she is also directing The Eternals. For Marvel. But Nomadland, it is, I said, but like this year, was phenomenal for female performers in particular, like movies that we haven't discussed or I haven't mentioned, like in particular, like Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, and The Assistant are both incredible, just performance-driven movies. And Nomadland is just it is heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. And Frances McDormand is just like insanely good in it. It's about a woman in her 60s embarks on a journey through the western United States after losing everything in the Great Recession, living as a van-dwelling modern-day nomad. And the reason I bring up the plot and everything is that this movie communicates in such a kind of a free-spirited kind of way. Like if I understand it correctly, I think Frances McDormand basically worked and lived this lifestyle, and they just there's a scene where she's working in like a store, like a grocery store, and she's like actually doing like the deli counter and stuff, or packaging stuff. And like I saw a comment or something saying like, oh, it's just imagine like someone buying a sandwich and it's like, oh, this was packaged by Frances McDormand. But the kind of heartbreaking part of this movie is that it is all about Frances McDormand's character and the loss that she suffered. And it's not just like the physical loss that she's had, but it's also this loss of community. Like she no longer has like a community. She's just not a part of a community anymore. I won't say why, because I mean it says it in the opening of the movie, but the entire movie is kind of contingent or built around her nomadic life and the way that she is trying to find connection between people, as well as like trying to find a new tribe and a new, like, her people and like her, like a community, because she has suffered so much. And like that is something that just, I don't know, the depiction of that and the way that it's the way that it's told, the story's told, and especially through her performance, just really, really resonated with me in a big way. So that's my number 3, Nomadland. Really fantastic.
Nice. That's another one I missed, but want to see.
Yeah. Recommend it. Yep. All right. We're at our top 2. Mike?
Here we go.
Right.
So my top 2, Tiny, is Sound of Metal.
Nice.
Yeah, this one, it kind of was a total package for me. Strong message, amazing performance from Riz Ahmed, the sound design, like Tiny already mentioned, but also, and this really goes a long way, when you watch 283 movies, and you watch a lot of bad horror movies, like, compelling movies go a long way. Like entertaining movies really go a long way. And it's why in most years they're heavily weighted toward blockbusters. Mm-hmm. As much as I'm a fan of film and I like hard to find movies, I also like easy to watch entertaining movies. And Sound of Metal I just found really easy to watch and entertaining. And really sad, but also beautiful. I connected, not that I'm a recovering addict, but for a while I considered myself straight edge. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess I still am. I just don't, I don't wear the T-shirt or whatever. Mm-hmm. So when the movie started and he had like the straight edge tattoos, so I was able to connect with that a little bit more. So I love that, the idea of losing something that important to you. I mean, obviously your sense of hearing is important to you, but like that it's his job and that music is his life is so important. And the way his relationship is handled on the back half of the movie, which I don't want to spoil in case anybody hasn't seen the movie, is so beautiful to me. And then that last shot, like you said, Tiny, was probably my favorite scene from a movie this year. And I weighed it so heavily, which is why this is my number 2 of the year, because that ending was so beautiful and so perfect for that kind of a movie. And I like to tell my students when a movie ends and they're like, well, what happens? We want to know what happens. My answer to them is like, it doesn't matter. You just watched the most interesting thing that has ever happened to this person. And so I like the thought of he's just going to like live a normal life. Not normal, you know, but he's just going to live his life. And we got to see him realize that. It's just great. It's so beautiful.
Nice.
Well
said. Well said.
Yeah, I really need to revisit that. I really liked it, and Riz Ahmed, just incredible.
He acts with his eyes.
Yes.
Do you notice that? Like he's such an eye actor. Like is like, so obviously speaking lines, but like the way he acts with his face is so impressive.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, when he's like frustrated because he can't hear, his eyes go dead. And then when he's interested, his eyes like bug out a little bit. He's so interesting to watch.
Absolutely.
His body language too. I feel like early on, the first third, and then the second third of the movie, he's very jumpy and edgy, and by the end, he's calmed down so much.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Tiny, your number 2.
My number 2 is Da 5 Bloods from Spike Lee.
Nice.
I really liked this movie a lot, and I think what's interesting is the plot is so derivative. We didn't talk about this on the podcast, but I think I brought it up briefly in a Patreon episode.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but it's so the plot is derivative, which I sort of knew that going in, and I sort of had a chip on my shoulder as a viewer in regards to that going into the movie, so I was sort of primed to see this as a Spike Lee entry that I wasn't really going to dig that much.
Mm-hmm.
But the complete opposite happened, thankfully. The characters are just so damn good in this movie. I just absolutely adore the characters. Most notably Delroy Lindo.
Yeah.
Actor or Oscar nomination has to get one. He was so freaking crazy and awesome in this movie. Chadwick Boseman in one of his last performances, always a pleasure and a joy to watch. And it's funny because he was the youngest actor of the 4 main characters in the movie, but he was really the leader amongst these really seasoned actors who have a lot of experience and emotion under their belts, and he was able to shine despite all that, which was really incredible. So that's absolutely of note with the movie. But just the plot sort of takes a backseat to how close these guys are because of what they went through. And just they haven't seen each other in years, but they fall back into this deep friendship with one another. It's really incredible and beautiful. It's really a cool movie, and I think I don't think enough people saw it. I haven't heard a lot of people talking about it, which is a shame because it's been on Netflix from the get go, and people can go watch it. So I hope a lot more people see it and start talking about it because I think Black Klansman is a slightly better movie, but not much. This is a really great entry from Spike Lee. With my relationship with him, it's usually like he puts out a good one or a great one that I really like, and then the next one I'm just like I can't connect with it or I don't really enjoy it. But he's had 2 in a row that are awesome. Nice.
Yeah, I liked Da 5 Bloods, but it just didn't make the cut for me. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Mike, did you see it?
I did not. Okay. It's on my want to see list.
Gotcha. All right. So my number 2 is Palm Springs.
Nice.
Yes. Just a freaking delight of a movie. I mean,
it's compelling, entertaining.
Oh, absolutely. Like, and you mentioned the chemistry between Andy Samberg and Kyrsten Milioti, just electric. Absolutely electric. And this movie, it just really stuck with me. Like I was just I'm predisposed to like this type of movie. It's a romantic comedy with a science fiction element of time travel, or at least a time loop. And as tired as that concept could be, it is still a fresh take on it. Like, I remember watching the movie, and then I don't know why I didn't know that they were both, slight spoilers, that they're both stuck in the time loop. But like, I was watching it, and then like when he goes into the cave, and then it starts the next day or whatever, I'm just like, oh, that would be cool if they do one of these movies where like two people are in the same time loop or whatever. Like, that would be cool. And then it happens, and I'm like, okay, I'm on board. Like, this is fantastic. There's a montage early on in the movie that just kind of shows a time lapse of them doing their time loop stuff, and everything, that I was just floored by, because like, that's the most, I mean, it just shows how compatible they are and how just strong their chemistry is. And I love the movie. It is such a delight, and I will be rewatching it several times in the future, I'm sure. It'll be another Knives Out.
When I texted you and said, I love when a movie takes care of you.
Yes. And I actually tweeted, when I was sick with COVID and I was listening to Stephen King audiobooks, I tweeted a screenshot of that, because you hit the nail on the head. Like, that idea of like going into a movie and like just knowing that you're going to be taken care of as an audience member of it. Like, that's the feeling I had when I like was listening to a Stephen King short story while I was sick with COVID, and I was just like, oh, this is that. But yeah, I adore it.
I like movies that are difficult. I'm thinking of Ending Things doesn't, like, it wants you at arm's length. It doesn't care if you get it.
Yeah.
It's art. But
Yeah.
Palm Springs is just like wants to be your best friend. It's like a happy
Absolutely.
dog.
Yes.
It's like, look, sit here. You are about to be entertained.
And we've talked about that. We talked about this on the pod chat and everything. But Andy Samberg just seems like just the most, like, the coolest. Like, not even necessarily the coolest guy, but he just seems like I want to be his friend. Like, he just seems like so just genuinely cool.
What I hear about him is that while he takes comedy very seriously, he's not like a super jokey guy. Like, in person, apparently he's kind of a serious dude.
Nice.
He's very humble too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's a pop star song where he's like, I'm so humble, and it's a whole thing. Anyway.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so that's my number 2, Palm Springs.
I'm gonna need to see that one.
Oh yeah, that's right, yeah. Okay, so before we get to our number ones, just real quick, Mike, you're going to read Ben's top 10. Ben is, of course, our recurring co-host and contributing reviewer on the website. So take it away, Mike, with Ben's top 10.
Okay, so these are Ben's top 10 movies of 2020. Number 10, David Byrne's American Utopia. Number 9, The Swerve. Number 8, Wolfwalkers. Number 7, Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. Number 6, we've heard this one already, Da 5 Bloods. Number 5, Small Axe, Lovers Rock. Number 4, Boys State. Number 3, another recurring movie on this episode, The Vast of Night. And number 1 is a tie between First Cow and The Assistant. That's Ben's top 10 of the year.
Nice.
All right, so let's get into our number 1 movies of 2020. Mike, why don't you regale us with your number 1 movie of 2020?
Number 1. Oh, it was number 1 the first time I saw it, and it I don't think it ever budged. Now, the caveat, of course, is that it was 2020, and I'm not sure this would even be on my top 10 of 2019. So there's that. And I also know that Matt was not a super huge fan of this movie, which that's fine. So I feel weirdly apologetic about this, but I got to tell you, I watched it twice last year, and both times, the second time it held up just fine. It was really entertaining. I watched it with my in-laws and my wife, and it's Lee Whannell's The Invisible Man.
Ah, yeah, okay.
It's definitely a number 1 for me. It was the most fun I had watching a new movie this year, especially in theaters. The scenes I won't spoil, but there's kind of the big shocker scene that if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, which is just, yes. I am rarely surprised and shocked at a movie. And that got me. I jumped, and I am not a jumper. And it totally worked. Also, I mean, you could put Elizabeth Moss in anything, and she's excellent. But watching just kind of the physical acting she has to do in this movie is great. It's trying to be that prestige horror. It's not. I think people who didn't like it kind of compare it to like a Jordan Peele type prestige horror type movie, and it's not. It's really a sci-fi popcorn horror with a little like cranked up the what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. The prestige is cranked up a notch. I really loved Lee Wanell's Upgrade, and so I was super excited to see what he would do with kind of a classic Universal monster type of thing. And the gaslighting theme, while is super overt and super important, I don't mean to be dismissive of that at all. I'm you know, it's a topic that matters a lot to me. I don't know that is the only thing that's great about this movie. I think you can like dismiss this movie as like, yeah, it hits you over the head with the gaslighting theme. It does that a little bit, but it's still so interesting and so compelling and so fun to watch what they do, and how they kind of modernize that old studio era Universal Studios Invisible Man type of monster. So it was definitely the most fun I had. Elizabeth Moss is so great, and I would watch literally anything Lee Wanell does. So The Invisible Man is my number one.
To your point, I watched it in the theater at the beginning of the year. I wrote a review of it where I wasn't too hot on it, but I did revisit it back in like September, and that's one of those movies that my opinion just 180. Like I was really into it on that second viewing.
Oh, cool, yeah. Good.
Yeah, I probably should have put it in my top 10 to be honest, but it's definitely an honorable mention. It's something I'll revisit at some point, and I'm really hopeful that they do more Universal monsters and do like that Blumhouse kind of thing with it, because I'm a fan of the old school ones. So so cool. Nice.
I haven't said anything because my number one is Lee Wanell's The Invisible Man.
No shit.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Man, I have to echo so much of what Mike said, because I was going to say this is the most fun I had watching a movie the whole year.
Wow.
It was so thrilling. I was being a cliche viewer, like yelling at the screen, like, "Oh God, don't do that!" You know. And this is, I mentioned the disturbing stat at the beginning of the episode where only one movie of my top 10 I watched with someone else, and this was that movie. I watched it with my wife, and she is the scariest thing in the world to her is like a peeping Tom leering person through a window that scares the shit out of her. And so if you take that dynamic and make that person invisible, it's even scarier. So she was jumping out of her seat. It was so much fun watching it with her. I loved it for that. But to bring up the gaslighting theme, I think while it was very prevalent, I feel like it didn't detract from the incredible thrills and the jumps. It was there in spite of it was there in spite of all that. It was just weaved in very well amongst a really incredible horror movie, and I think it's really more thriller than anything, because and I feel that way because Elizabeth Moss, her performance and that character is so capable. She never fully gives into the idea that she's crazy, and that she you know, this is happening to her. She's not going crazy. And the scary moment that Mike was talking about, the big reveal, scary jump moment that was so freaking cool. Yeah. is such great comeuppance for her, and after that moment, I just can't take my eyes off Elizabeth Moss. She's so good. And this is it's interesting how classic of a movie this is, but it's updated so well for the 2020 world. You know, all the technology is in this movie, and it's a technological movie, right? It's really interesting how so many Universal Monster updates don't go very well and don't translate as well to a modern audience. But Lee Wannell just crushed it with this, just absolutely nailed it. And I can't wait to watch it again. I've still only watched it the one time, but it was such a freaking great movie. I loved it.
Watched the second time, and it made me miss theaters because watching it with my wife and her parents, and they're good movie watchers. Like they kind of react, and that scene we've mentioned now a couple of times was awesome. It was awesome to watch with them.
I would have loved to see it in the theater.
It was good.
Yeah.
Just that, like I've said, like literally a jaw dropping moment.
Yeah.
Like literal jaw dropped from my mouth.
Yeah.
Just really spectacular. So yeah, nice. All right, shall I round us out with my number one movie of 2020?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's close out 2020's dumpster fire of a year with my number one movie of 2020, which was hang on. I'm Thinking of Ending Things, Charlie Kaufman's movie. Yes.
Wow. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I've only seen it the once, like Tiny with his number one. But it had for me such a distinct, I was very pleasantly surprised by it because I wasn't a fan of Charlie Kaufman's Anomalisa. I thought that was just not, I didn't connect with it at all. And then previous to watching I'm Thinking of Ending Things, I revisited Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which of course was written by Charlie Kaufman. And I didn't connect with that at all either. It was one of my favorite movies. And then I just rewatching it now, I was just like not too into it. So when I saw
that one again,
yeah. So when I saw I'm Thinking of Ending Things, I was kind of not sure what to expect, but I just think the visual like storytelling of it through the different locations, like so much of it takes place in this claustrophobic car that with snow like falling all around it, and you just get this sense of just entrapment in this relationship. And what it does that really came home to me or really hit home for me was the way that it plays with, not necessarily plays with time, but it does this thing where it showcases to us, it shows us these different iterations of these different stages of several different relationships. Like the whole premise at the outset is that Jesse Buckley and Jesse Plemons are in a relationship, and they're going to Jesse Plemons' parents' house, and Jesse Buckley is thinking of ending things with him. But what happens when they get there is it just devolves into this, or it changes into this very weird atmospheric kind of prosaic look at human relationships of all kinds. And like I was really struck by that because it covers such a wide swath. Like even with the parents who like both of the parents in it. Oh my God, God damn it. Sorry, Toni Collette and David Thewlis. They like their performances are just out of this world incredible to me in this movie. And I will say that it kind of loses its grip with me toward the end of the movie, but the majority of the movie and the way that it plays with the tropes of like horror and this unease that's that happens because it's covering such a wide gamut of different experiences and different types of relationships, and kind of getting to the core of like just human interaction at some points. It's a really deeply like rich movie for me, and I was just really in love with the storytelling style of it. I was very impressed by it. So that's my number one movie. I'm thinking of ending things.
Nice.
Whew.
We did it.
Yeah,
we did
it. So okay, we've run way over our time.
What is our certified obsessive viewer?
Oh shit!
I don't know that we have one.
We don't.
I literally think it's Springs.
Yeah.
No, Tiny didn't see Springs.
Yeah, but
We don't have one.
I think it would have made it if I'd seen it.
Maybe.
I'm fine with Palm Springs.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll do Palm Springs. Yeah.
All right. Palm Springs is
yes.
the viewer movie of the year.
Yes.
Sound of Metal not on your top 10, Matt?
What'd you say?
Sound of Metal is not on your top 10.
No, it's not. And I had a slight panic attack when you said our collective one, because I just realized like we do like the idea is to do a top 10, and I'm like, well, we don't have time. So Palm Springs, number 1 of 2020, as per the Obsessive Viewer podcast. Yeah, so that's it. We did it. I am this isn't the end of the episode, because I'm going to record a separate thing that I'm going to tack on at the end that has stats for the podcast and all that nerdy shit. So you guys can, so I'm not holding Mike and Tiny hostage with that. But I just want to say to the listeners and to you guys and to like the recurring co-hosts who are, I'm sure, listening intently as well. Thank you for listening to the podcast and for interacting with us and taking the time to let us be a part of your life, especially in a year as fraught with just surmountable eventually.
Yeah.
Fraught with such tension and horror and shittiness as 2020 was. It's really nice that we not only have this platform to express our opinions and feelings on the things that we love, but also that we have people that are like fans and listen to us. That is such a treat. And so I just want to say to everyone listening, we appreciate you 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening. Yeah. As always, make sure you tweet at us with your top 10s. If you don't have a top 10, because I don't know that a lot of people did, hit us with your top 3. And if you saw a movie that we didn't mention, please feel free to tweet at us and give us your recommendations. We want to see everything.
Yes. And as I said before, I'm going to add something to the end of this, just stats and everything, but I'm going to separate it with a clip from Mike's band. So, Mike, do you want to tell the listeners where they can find As Good as It Gets and your That's My Brudda, right?
That's My Brudda. That's My Brudda is on YouTube. We have 3 episodes up already. You can check that out. And then, so the band is As Good as It Gets. The song that you're going to hear at the end is called Apathy is the Key to Success, if you ask me. It's just a short clip. If you want the whole thing, you got to sign up for Patreon. And it is the January exclusive song for the month. Sweet. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/asgoodasitgets.
Sweet. And Tiny, any parting thoughts on 2020?
Let's get on to 2021.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah.
That.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and stay tuned for some stats breaking down and a clip from Mike's band. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Today I woke up at 2 p.m., sat around till 3, and then got dressed up to sit alone. Maybe I'll just watch the phone, but I know no one's gonna call. I know no one cares at all. I say that's just fine by me, 'cause I'm still drunk on apathy. Whoa, apathy. 'Cause I don't think that I exist. People just ignore me. And if I die, would I can't be missed. People see right through me. If you ask me, well, I'll be alright as long as I fall asleep tonight.
All right, so I'm here with some podcast stats and everything for the year, but first just want to reiterate that if you want to support Mike on his Patreon, go to patreon.com/asgoodasitgets. Yeah, please do, because he puts in a lot of work for that, and I really want him to keep making music, so patreon.com/asgoodasitgets. And okay, so I'm gonna just kind of round out the episode with a breakdown of some stats that I have and everything. So before I get to the actual podcast stats, well, I basically what I do is I keep a running log of like all of the quote unquote film journalism I do throughout the year. So you can find an archive of all of that per year at obsessiveviewer.com/ I think it's Matt Hurt 2020. So basically, throughout the year of 2020, I wrote a total number of 54 pieces, essays, reviews, what have you. That's compared to 24 pieces in 2019. So 2020 was a big year. Of those 54, 53 of them were for obsessiveviewer.com, obviously. The one that wasn't was a guest piece that I wrote for Midwest Film Journal, their No Sleep October series. I did an essay about The Mist. And the 53 that I did for ObsessiveViewer.com breaks down as follows. Wide releases, I reviewed 26 movies. Film festivals, I wrote 7 reviews for. And I wrote 20 reviews for movies that were non-new releases. So I started a couple of review series that I really need to get back to. And I will eventually. But yeah, so overall 54 written pieces of film criticism on the internet in 2020. I'm very happy with that. So hopefully I can do more in 2021. And now let's get into the podcast stats. So throughout all 3 podcasts, I released 58 episodes. It breaks down as follows. So Obsessive Viewer released 26 episodes in 2020. Anthology released 16 episodes in 2020. And Tower Junkies also released 16 episodes in 2020. So that's a total of, as I said before, 58 episodes. I also made 1 guest appearance on Spark of Madness podcast in 2020, reviewing Blast from the Past. So all told, I contributed 113 pieces of digital and written content about film criticism and movies and TV shows on the internet, which actually matches the exact amount that I did in 2019. 2019, I did 113 as well. So anyway, more nerdy podcast stats. Obsessive Viewer, as I said, had a total of 26 episodes in 2020. That breaks down as, in terms of audio content, we released on Obsessive Viewer podcast a total of 1 day, 23 hours, and 8 minutes worth of audio. The longest episode, and that's not including the year in review episode, which obviously is the longest episode of the year, but the longest episode, not including the year in review, was episode 329. That was mine and Mike's Friday the 13th franchise retrospective episode. That was 2 hours and 39 minutes and 27 seconds. The shortest episode was OV332, which was one of my COVID-19 film festival episodes. Yeah, so that's cool. Anthology, like I said, had 16 episodes in 2020 that I released a total of 18 hours and 20 minutes worth of content on Anthology. The longest episode of that was the first episode of my season 2 of the Twilight Zone reboot review. So that was bonus episode 41, Meet in the Middle. That was an hour and 42 minutes. I'm kind of surprised I talked that long on a solo podcast. No, I'm not really surprised. I do that a lot. Shortest episode of that was actually bonus episode 40 of Anthology, Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2, which was the last episode of my review of Black Mirror's new season in 2020. That episode ran for 46 minutes and 48 seconds. And so then Tower Junkies And so Tower Junkies, rounding out the podcasts, Tower Junkies had 16 episodes as well. We released 20 hours and 58 minutes worth of content on Tower Junkies. The longest episode was episode 43, which was our first episode reviewing Castle Rock Season 2. That episode ran for 1 hour and 49 minutes. And the shortest episode was episode 38, the episode where Tiny and I reviewed the Shining 1997 miniseries. That ran for 47 minutes and 17 seconds. So all told, throughout all 3 podcasts from Obsessive Viewer Podcasts, we released a total of, like I said, 58 episodes with a grand total of 3 days, 14 hours, and 27 minutes worth of audio. So thank you guys so much for listening to all of that. And I also broke down a couple of other things. So Tiny was on a total of 24 podcast episodes throughout the year. So he was on 14 episodes of Tower Junkies, 9 episodes of Obsessive Viewer, and 1 episode of Anthology. And Mike was on a total of 6 episodes throughout the year. That was 5 episodes of Obsessive Viewer and 1 episode of Tower Junkies. Fekkes, surprisingly, I didn't realize this. Fekkes only made 1 appearance on the podcast this year, so we'll have to rectify that. I think part of that is obviously COVID, but also throughout most of last year he was working nights, so that made logistics a little hard to work out. Kyrsten appeared on 3 episodes of the podcast, and then rounding out the recurring co-hosts is Ben with 9 episodes. He made 9 appearances on Obsessive Viewer, so that's super awesome. I'm looking forward to having more of the recurring co-hosts on the show. And okay, so yeah, that is it for podcast stats, but I do want to talk about Patreon stats and then I'll let you guys go. Once again, obviously, if you can afford it, if you have money to spare and you want to support the show financially, check out patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. We have reworked the tiers in the past few months. So basically, there are $1 and $2 tiers, where you get access to B-roll audio episodes. That's the stuff that we play at the end of each episode, and that we have, we play clips of at the end of each episode, and we just kind of use it as kind of just a relaxing, casual conversation. And in 2020, oh wait, I'll start over. And then at the $5 level, you get access to those B-roll episodes as well as commentary tracks, and video logs, whenever they come up. That's at $5. And then at $10, you get access to, all of that plus early access to episodes and unreleased episodes, of, across all podcasts. So basically anytime I edit an episode, I will load it up onto Patreon and then schedule it to post on the main feed. So, a breakdown of the Patreon exclusive content in 2020 is as follows. The B-roll audio episodes at the $1 and $2 levels, breakdown as follows. Obsessive Viewer had 22 B-roll episodes. Anthology had 11, and Tower Junkies had 15, for a total number of 48 Patreon exclusive B-roll episodes. And then commentary tracks and videos at the $5 level, we had 2 vlogs, which usually the vlogs are stuff that, you know, like me and Kyrsten would do after we see a movie in the theater. But obviously we didn't see movies in theaters in 2020, so we only did 2 vlogs. And then 2 commentary tracks in 2020. So that's 4 pieces of content in 2020 for the $5 level of commentary tracks and videos. And finally, early access and unreleased episodes at the $10 level. We revamped this a little bit late in the year, so that's why these numbers are low. But Obsessive Viewer had 1 early access episode. Anthology had 6 early access / unreleased episodes, and Tower Junkies had 4 early access / unreleased episodes. So that was a total of 11 pieces of content for the $10 level in 2020. And so that's total Patreon content released in 2020 was 63 pieces of content. Yeah, so that's at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. And just real quick, in 2020, the B-roll audio at the $1 and $2 tiers released in 2020 amounted to 1 day and 40 minutes worth of audio. Commentary tracks amounted to 3 hours and 29 minutes. And unreleased content was 3 hours and 3 minutes worth of audio. So on Patreon, we released a total of 1 day, 7 hours and 12 minutes of content. So I know that you guys were super excited for me to go on to that tangent 3 hours into our year in review episode, and I wanted to thank you so much for indulging me on that, and also thank you so much for supporting really everything that we do. This year was, I know I said this in the episode, but this year in 2020 was particularly rough on a lot of, on everyone, and that's, it was tough on mental health all around the horn. I struggled a lot in 2020 with a variety of things, and I really found a lot of good comfort in creating podcasts and doing the whole podcast thing. So thank you so much for supporting us and giving me validation for all the work that I put into this silly show and silly series of shows where I just get to talk to my friends about the things that we love. So, yeah, that'll do it. That's our year in review episode. Fuck off 2020. And, yeah, I sincerely hope that everyone listening to this has a great and safe and productive and healthy 2021. And yeah, I'm looking forward to posting more podcast content for you guys. So once again, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for supporting us, and I'll see you next time. Oh, next time, by the way, the next episode is going to be, Ben and I are going to be continuing our Roger Ebert's Great Movies List review series. That episode is actually already up on Patreon right now, but it will be posting on this feed on January 31st at midnight. So, yeah, and then after that, Mike and I are going to be reviewing The Vigil and Shifter. Excited about that. That'll be later in February. So, yeah, it's going to be a good year, I think, hopefully. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. And now, here's a short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. To hear the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy.
Because if you set Power Rangers in Ohio, it's a completely different show.
Exactly.
Yeah. VR Troopers was such a, unabashedly... It's no secret that it was like a ripoff of Power Rangers. Mm-hmm. So much so that when the Green Ranger, Tommy, Jason David Frank, left the show, they pitched when when they turned him good after breaking Rita's spell, and he then went away later after joining the team. Mm-hmm. Before he came back as the White Ranger, they were like, "We're going to develop a show for you called VR Troopers, where you be the head trooper."
Oh, wow.
And they ended up bringing Tommy back as the White Ranger instead.
I had no idea that was the case.
I don't even know what VR Troopers is. I don't even know.
What?
Yeah, and I don't even know. I don't get that reference.
You must have went outside as a kid.
I did.
So we're here in the new year. So happy 2021, everyone.
The Obsessive Viewer podcast is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to ObsessiveViewer.com/OV archive. You can also like our Facebook page and join the OV Facebook group at Facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer. And follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer and at ObsessiveTiny. And follow our recurring co-hosts at I am Mike White, that's me, at R.A. Fekkes, and at Burger_Lurker. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com, T-E-E, public.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberinirvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com and on Twitter at OVAnthologyPod. You can also find Tower Junkies, a podcast where Matt and Tiny share their love of all things Stephen King and his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series, at towerjunkiespod.com and at towerjunkiespod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. The theme music for The Obsessive Viewer comes courtesy of the band Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Kitty!